All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the channel. So I wanted to react to the most recent debate I had with Ricardo Ignacio, and I think this will be a very instructive video, and it's going to be a pretty long one, so I hope you guys enjoy it. It's going to be very deep. It's going to be a lot of analysis, a lot of critiques that I levy towards him, and I will be clarifying a lot of my positions. But I want to just say at the outset that I've learned a lot in just the past 2 weeks having these conversations with Ricardo. And in the first debate, what I learned was that debating the phenotype of a mulatto is kind of pointless because to some extent, Ricardo has a point. Black and white biracials come in all shapes and sizes. Now, do we generally have a particular aesthetic? Yes. Light brown skin, light skin to light brown skin to medium brown with type 3 hair. That's generally our appearance. But some of us are more white presenting, some of us are more black presenting. I get it. You know, he's not totally wrong when he says that. But ultimately, debating that with him was pointless. Ultimately, what I should have focused on more was the conversation about mulatto identity and mulatto peoplehood, and how we're entitled to that identity, we're entitled to a sense of peoplehood, and how that identity should be respected by society. The mulatto identity specifically. Because that's a much more defensible claim. Much more defensible claim. When you start going through the phenotype stuff, ultimately it's just it goes nowhere, and it's very subjective. So that's one of the first things I learned. I had to learn that the hard way. But I think in the second conversation, I actually think I did a lot better. I was much more clear about my stances. I was able to push back on a lot of his claims. I wasn't just fighting inside of his frame the whole time. So I think it went much better. And the reason I'm putting out this video is because I need to respond to some things. I need to clarify my positions. And I actually want to kind of engage in a bit of a critique of Ricardo here because his ideas and his opinions need to be deconstructed and they need to be attacked and scrutinized. And so that's why I'm doing this video. It's going to be very instructive, very, very important. So please hang tight with me here. And like I said, this will be a longer video, so I would really appreciate if you guys could just like and subscribe real quick if you enjoy the content. But yeah, without further ado, let's get right into it. Fair use.
With that said, what is your topic?
Let's speed this up.
Sure. So I wanted to talk to you about let's talk about like the differences between, or why I think it's justified for somebody like me to refer to myself as mulatto, and why I think it's justified for us to reclaim the word. And I would even go as far as to say there's even...
So, two claims. It's justified for us to reclaim the word mulatto, and it's justified for us to identify with the word. Those are the central claims I'm defending. Not who is a mulatto, what does a mulatto look like. That's kind of a different thing. It's ultimately about reclaiming the word and identifying with the word and having that be respected by society. That's step one. Everything else past that is, you know, that's secondary.
The genetic defense of that decision.
And I also said there's a genetic defense of it, meaning you can kind of create parameters around genealogy to determine who belongs to that race. Also very important.
So that's what I would like to talk about.
Okay, well, here's the thing. You've claimed about me, because you make videos about me, you claimed about me that Ricardo wants to force mulattoes, biracials to identify as such and such.
Okay, you know, here's the thing with him, right? Ricardo is very slippery. So what he does is he engages in a Mott and Bailey. And what he'll do is he will stake out a descriptive claim, but he'll mask it as a prescriptive claim that has normative implications. So what do I mean? Ricardo will say, well, society just views mixed race people or mulattoes as black, right? Society just views you guys as black. And that is the descriptive statement. But underlying that particular statement is mixed identity or mulatto identity is not socially meaningful. Therefore, you really shouldn't even be identifying that way. That's kind of the implication of what he's doing here. He's downplaying mixed race identity. He's minimizing the mulatto identity, but he just does it in a very slick way where he has plausible deniability. So what he does is he masks a descriptive statement as a prescriptive statement. He loads a descriptive statement with a normative implication about what you ought to do, about what society sees you as, about the implications. So it's like if society just sees you as black, then the whole mulatto thing is kind of meaningless. And the whole mixed race identity is kind of meaningless. It's not up to you. It's not your choice. Society's not going to respect it or acknowledge it. So just give it up, buddy. That is what Ricardo is saying. And of course, he'll say there's plausible deniability. I'm not trying to take your identity. But when he constantly tells you that this is the way things are, this is the way society is. And if you identify as mixed or mulatto, you're probably anti-black or you have anti-black views. What he's trying to do is he's trying to basically discredit people who identify as mixed or mulatto, even if they have discernible African ancestry. That's what he's doing. Let's not pretend. Let's not lie to ourselves. It would be like if somebody says, you know, throughout all of mankind, people have always naturally identified with their country, their nation, right? Canada, the United States, Argentina, people who live in these countries, citizens, they've always just identified with their country, right? Everybody's always just been patriotic. That's just how it is. That's just how people are. That's just the natural way of doing things, right? That's just what it is. Now, there is that descriptive statement, which is throughout most of human history, most people have been patriotic and identified with their country. That might be true, but the normative claim that the person is sneaking in is that it's natural or it's right or this is the way it should be, which is a normative claim. That's a moral claim. And then when people get pushed on that, well, do I have to be patriotic? Do I have to identify with that country? The person who said it is going to move back and say, no, I'm just telling you that's how it always has been. It's called a Mott and Bailey. The Mott in that particular situation is the everybody should be patriotic, it's natural. But the Bailey is, oh no, I'm just telling you that's how it is. Ricardo does the same thing. The Mott is society only sees you as black. And if you identify as black, you probably have some anti-black views, and Dominicans and mixed race people who don't identify as black are anti-black, whatever. And then when you get pushed on that, when he gets pushed on that, he backs up and says, oh no, I'm just telling you that's how society sees you. So it's like he tries to engage in this kind of like slippery game where he kind of bounces in between normative claims and descriptive claims. And I'm not playing that game. I'm a mulatto. And I don't care if you think it's mean or if you think it's, insensitive. It's whatever to me. I don't care. That's my identity. That's who I am, regardless of if the world just sees me as black, which is a highly contestable claim to begin with. But just understand, this is the game that this guy plays. This is how Ricardo gets down. He's wishy-washy. He jumps in between descriptive claims and prescriptive claims, Mott and Bailey. So just beware of that. Don't let these people play those kinds of games with you. You have to be firm in your identity. And you have to tell them, like, this is not about the descriptive. The world might see me as black. That's fine. Whatever. And like I said, that's highly contestable. But that is the kind of descriptive claim he's making. Sure, the world can see me as black, whatever. What I'm rejecting is the prescriptive claim, which is that it's my obligation to identify as black, or it's my obligation to remind everybody of my blackness, or it's my obligation to not identify as mixed or mulatto, which he seems to kind of be suggesting, even if he wants to hide it. So anyways, that's what I would say in regards to like the whole, I'm not pressuring anybody. No, we know all your content and you're very critical of mixed race people, always calling them out for being anti-black, always calling us out for wanting to distance ourselves from blackness by identifying as mixed. We know your game, Ricardo. Let's not do that.
In this particular case, black. Here's the thing. I don't force nobody to identify as whatever you want or don't want to. You are going to always identify however you want. There's nothing I can do about that.
Yeah, but you're always trying to suggest or imply, rather, how we should behave by pandering to the sensibilities of black people.
If you want to come to my space and have that conversation regarding race, being a social construct, etc., I'm going to give you my perception. And quite frankly, because of the conversation that you and I had regarding the way race works and how we are affected by it, you, in your own words, even without wanting to, you admitted that you are identified normally when you are racially identified as black in your own words.
No, sir.
My video is there.
No, there's plenty of examples. That right there. So I would say this. There's nuances to everything in life. And it's the problem is you have a totalizing view. You say that's...
See, here's the way I look at it. regardless of whether or not people identify me as black, is immaterial because it doesn't describe my ancestry, my genealogy, my history, my upbringing. I had the upbringing of a mulatto. I am a mulatto. So regardless of whether or not the world kind of sees me that way is ultimately irrelevant. And here's what I would say to this. Ricardo's essential argument rests on the assumption that your race is determined by the way the world views you. First off, he doesn't know the way the world views me. He doesn't even know the way society views me. He knows how he views me, and then he projects that out to the world. The world might see me as different things. Hispanic, some kind of Blaxican, some kind of black, white, biracial, maybe very few people, I don't know who, but maybe some would think I'm monoracial black. You might have some people who see me as a Dominican or a Puerto Rican, whatever, right? But what he's effectively saying is that society's opinion or perception of your racial identity is what you are. And I'm saying that's wrong because his argument essentially rests on the notion that society dictates your race. And I'm like, well, what is society affected by and what informs society's opinions on race? The public consciousness. And what informs the public consciousness? Thoughts, ideas, information. Okay, so race is determined by thoughts, ideas, and information at its root because those things affect perceptions of race and phenotype. So in essence, what he's arguing is that if we were to flood the internet with enough information and change society's thoughts and ideas regarding the mulatto identity, and then help society discern between what a mulatto looks like and what a monoracial black person looks like, and society begins to identify me as a mulatto, then all of a sudden that becomes my race, even though that was my real race to begin with? What he's saying, it doesn't make sense. What he's saying is that all of this is based on thoughts, ideas, perception, public consciousness, but all those things can be informed by information. Because at one point we were identified as mulatto. At one point we had our own racial classification. And there was a clear delineation between us and monoracial black people. And it was that way for 3/4 of a century. So clearly, this is circumstantial. And if we change circumstances, if we change the information, we'll change society's perception of our race, but it doesn't change our underlying race. It doesn't change our underlying makeup or who we are. That's the argument I'm making. So society's perceptions could be all wrong. And I'm not going to base my race on society being incorrect. It makes no sense.
Society sees you this way. Well, society is comprised of 341 billion people in the United States.
I meant to say million. I don't know why I said billion.
There are countless examples. There's different cultures. There's different ethnic groups. Other people within our society, different individuals.
Exactly. There's been plenty of times when I've been identified as Latino, living out here in the West Coast. There's not as many black people. People perceive me a little bit differently. Sometimes people will come up to me and speak to me in Spanish, even though I don't speak Spanish, although I am half Latin. So there's that aspect to it. And there are times, plenty of times, when people have been like, you're not full black. You know what I mean? What are you mixed with? Or what are you? I've been asked that question. How many times has a monoracial black person been asked, what are you? I've been asked that question many times. So Ricardo doesn't know my experience, and he doesn't know the experience of mixed race people in this country at all. He just yaps like he knows everything, but he doesn't. And he's so wrong, and he doesn't even understand it.
Experiences. Some have a more keen sense of phenotype and race. Some have a less keen sense of phenotype and race. The notion that you can basically say, all of what you do, society sees you as black, society sees you as black, is a wild point.
It is, because he can't speak for society. You see, it's funny how you have these people in the comments. This person says society does see you that way. Get over it, or whatever. And it's like let me not go there. You people don't know how society views me. You just don't. You have no right to make that claim. You're one person. You're not society. Your perception is not everybody's perception. And let's be very clear about something. A black person, an actual black person, can go anywhere in the world and be seen as black. It's not ambiguous. It's not up for debate. It's very clear who they are, what they are, where they came from. Okay? So black people, unambiguous black people, can go anywhere on earth and not have their identity questioned, not have their identity deconstructed, not have their identity be confused for something else. With me, that's not the case, and I'll be identified differently in various societies and in various contexts. That will not happen to a black person. My identity is perceived differently based on the context. With monoracial black people, that never, ever, ever, ever happens. Let's be very clear about that. So no, we're not the same. And all of society does not see us the same. They need to stop perpetuating that lie.
That you have no evidence for. It is a massive generalization. I have been in countless scenarios.
That's another thing. He doesn't have any evidence. It's just an assertion. When he says society sees you this way, it's an assertion. It's not an argument. There's no evidence. It's an assertion based on his opinion. He has never been asked, what are you? Well, maybe he has, but most actual black people have never been asked, what are you, ever. I have. They haven't. That's the difference.
Where people have misidentified me. Ethnically, some people have said, are you Dominican? Are you Puerto Rican? People have all kinds. So the point I'm making is, in regards to the conversation about just phenotype, the issue is something like that is very subjective. Okay, it's based on individual opinions, individual preferences.
So the lady here says those aren't races, meaning Dominican and Puerto Rican aren't races, even though I've been identified that way. But when people say, are you Dominican or are you Puerto Rican? Yeah, they're not races, but like in America, they're kind of identified differently. Like when people says, you look Dominican or you look Puerto Rican, when people say that to me, what they're saying is you don't look like a black person. You don't look like a typical standard African American. You look a little bit different. That's what they're saying when they say, are you Dominican? Are you Puerto Rican? They're creating a clear distinction between me and standard black people in the United States. They're creating a clear distinction, and differentiation between us and them. So sure, they're not saying it's a different race, but they're identifying me as a different people. Not a monoracial black person, but somebody who's heavily admixed. Let's be very clear about that, because not everybody perceives race the same. Some people perceive mix as not even being black. Even though mix is technically not a race, it is a separate category on the census. So we're a different people. Mixed race people. We're a different people from black people, even if mixed isn't a race. We don't belong to any racial category. We're mixed. And that's what they're saying. They're saying you're mixed, you're not black. That's what's being conveyed there when they say you're Dominican or you're Puerto Rican. Okay? They're identifying you differently from a black person. Okay? So they want to just grasp at straws.
The most objective, concrete, consistent standard that we have to dictate somebody's race is their ancestry and is their genealogy. By far, that is the most concrete, consistent thing.
And the reason why is because it's consistent. It cannot be changed. It cannot be altered. Your genealogy, your ancestry is what it is. It cannot be changed based on thoughts, based on ideas, based on social opinion, based on what the media shows you. It cannot. It is objectively who you are and what you are. Your ancestry, your genealogy, that is what you are. Not whatever the fuck society tells you. Because society can change generation to generation. So why would I just go off of that? So if mulatto is back on the census 25 years from now, I'm going to be a mulatto. And then if they take it off 25 years later, I'm going to go back to being black. Like, what are we doing? It's nonsense.
This affects biology. This affects skull shape. This affects what specific diseases, what specific illnesses you are predisposed to. It's deeper than just what some
all that is correct
dipshit on the street thinks you are when they look at you. So I think that when you say that to mixed race people, this is how society sees you. You're engaging in a form of racial erasure that I actually think does more harm than good, and there's evidence to back that up.
And that's ultimately what it comes down to. When you basically tell a mixed race person, society only sees you as black, you should identify as black, we're taking away the word mulatto from you, you're engaging in a form of erasure, because Blasians can have Blasian, and Wasians can have Wasian, and all these other mixed race configurations can get their own term, but mulattoes can't. We just have to be black. We just have to be whatever they tell us. No, sir, I'm not going for it. We're mulattoes. Bottom line, accept it, deal with it. That is our term. That is our people.
I hate to tell you what I'm going to tell you, but race is not determined by your genealogy.
It absolutely is. It absolutely is.
Let me prove it to you. I actually can prove it to you.
So what he's saying is race is dictated by public opinion, in effect. But public opinion can be swayed by information, by the introduction of new thoughts and new ideas, by changing norms, in effect. So what he's saying is that if we argue effectively enough, we could change society back to seeing us as mulatto, even though nothing underneath genetically, biologically has changed. Very curious.
Since you just claimed that,
Which is why I'm not going off of that. I'm going off of what the genealogy says and what label applies to it.
I can't prove my claim.
So what's your claim? Race is based on what?
Check me out. Okay. To answer that, race is based on what you are phenotypically presenting. Well, what I will agree.
That's ridiculous. Race is based on what you're phenotypically presenting as, but everybody has a different opinion of that. That's the problem. He has even said some people identify him as some people identify him as Filipino, some people identify him as Mexican, whatever. What you're phenotypically presenting as is wildly different across contexts. So I'm not rooting my identity on that. That just makes no sense. Never.
What I will agree with you on is you said right now it depends on individuals. That's true. Like if I saw you walking on the street, there's a black guy. Somebody else may say that's a Samoan guy. Somebody else may say that guy looks like he's half black, half Mexican. Let me ask you something. Is any of us right?
No. Well, the one person who said half black, half Mexican would be the closest.
Okay. The truth is no one is right and nobody is wrong. Because race is not a real thing. It's a social construct. It's not a real thing. And now to prove it to you, aside from the examples that I gave you, there was this white lady a couple of years ago when the BLM movement was.
I mean, there's different populations. And different populations have different traits. And different populations have different predispositions in regards to diseases and whatnot. And different populations at the societal level share common characteristics, common features, common genotype, to the extent that they can be clustered together as a race, as a population, as a distinct group, because they have so many shared biological and genetic traits. Whether it's with Africans and dark skin and coily hair, whether it's with Europeans and light skin and blonde or straight lighter hair, whether it's with Asians and they're kind of they have unique nail beds and fingers and a hair texture and wider calves. The overall similarities between all these groups at the genetic level and biological level are so similar, and they're shared across so many different regions of the continent that they effectively are a unique population, a race of people. So for us, our underlying genealogy, our underlying makeup makes us a different population because we have different features: nose bridge, craniofacial structure, hair texture. It makes us different genetically and biologically. That's just what it is. These different populations were given these labels for a reason.
Was in full effect. A white lady, fully white lady, who put on a wig with the curly hair, and she claimed that she had a black mama, etc. Okay?
Only an Asian, only an Indian can make an Indian. Only a Chinese can make a Chinese. Or I guess I should say only 2 Chinese people can make a Chinese kid. Only 2 Indians can make an Indian kid. Only 2 Europeans can make a European kid.
Okay? And she got into the spaces of the BLMs and claimed to be black, etc. She passed as black. Her name was Rachel Dulles.
Oh, I remember that was yesterday.
Okay, sir, listen to me. She passed as black. Let me ask you.
Make her black.
Oh, well, listen to me. Why did she pass as black? Tell me.
I would say she passed as black. I wouldn't go so far as to say she passed as black. I think that might be a push.
But that's why I said she passed.
By the way,
black.
that's so funny. This guy says Rachel Dolezal passed as black. That woman never passed as black. Let's just be so serious. You just look her up real quick. Oh, give me a break. That woman never passed as black. passed. Are you kidding me? She could have maybe passed as biracial, but not black. I mean, give me a break.
Well, the thing with the whole passing is like that's all subjective as well. None of that's concrete. That's all based on opinion.
So let me ask this same question, just a different wording. How was she able to convince so many people that she was part black? You tell me.
Part black. That's a key word there. Part black. Huge caveat there.
Although she was not black at all.
Yeah. Right. Part black. Well, because she darkened her skin and she wore a wig or something.
Like in a sane world, if we had mulatto on the census and people were familiar with what a mulatto looked like, Rachel Dolezal would have been identified as a mulatto. Let's just be very clear about that. So that already demonstrates that there's a kind of distinction between kind of the standard black American phenotype and our phenotype.
Something like that, or she curled her hair. I don't know what she did to make it seem as if she had more African ancestry or whatever. Right?
Okay, you just answered it. So with that said, race is a social construct.
So you can just make it up, right?
Yes.
So I can make up mulatto. I can just call myself mulatto and say I'm mulatto. Because that was on the census.
Exactly. There you go. You can. If race is a social construct, I'll just make up mulatto.
1924.
Here's the problem.
If it's not based on anything real, if it's not based on anything genetic, then it's just like whatever anybody says. If that's the case, then I'll just call myself mulatto and we can go on about our business. People can call me mulatto, we can go on about our business. It's like it has to be based on something concrete.
The one problem here, sir, the one problem here is that you want to be identified. You want race to affect you in the way that you conveniently.
No, I don't want race to affect me in the way it conveniently maps onto my ethnic background. No, sir. I want race to be on the census to accurately reflect who we are as a people. And the word mulatto describes who we are as a people who are of black and white descent. Very simple. That deserves its own racial category. It's a category that I belong to. It's a category that millions of people belong to. Has nothing to do with my ethnic background. It's about racial background, sir. Let's get that cleared up. And if society was instructed or informed enough on the difference between a black American and a mulatto, we would clear up a lot of confusion.
Comfortably wanted to, meaning, so what's wrong with me being identified as mulatto? Nothing. If that's what you want. So you mean to tell me because you want to be identified as mulatto somewhere deep inside, that means that everyone out here is going to say, oh, look, there's a mulatto. Who says that?
I absolutely think that will happen if we renormalize.
Exactly. If we renormalize the word, exactly.
The word, absolutely, yeah. Certainly it's possible. I would say that, when you look at the average...
people can tell the difference between Zendaya and Halle Berry and Drake and who else is a good example? I don't know, but people can tell the difference between and Pink Panthers. Like people can tell the difference between them and like Lupita Nyong'o and Whoopi Goldberg. Like people can tell the difference, right? It's not difficult, once you start pointing it out. But people are just too scared to point it out, and we've been gaslit. That's why.
Right? In the United States, most of them are just said, oh yeah, he's probably mestizo, he's mestizo. That is a normal word to use. If we renormalize the word mulatto, there is a specific, generally speaking, broad phenotype associated with the word mulatto. I fit that phenotype. So I would say that if we renormalize the word mulatto, it comes back into the public consciousness. We'll solve so many issues in regards to the kind of racial confusion that goes on and the pressuring of mixed race people to identify with one ancestral group as opposed to both. We would solve so many problems, a lot of problems. So I think that it would be
absolutely correct.
It would be easier because it's a term that more accurately describes a lot.
Right, here we go. So look at what the lady says. Hold on. Let's read the comment.
So I think
she says mulatto equals black in America. That's the problem because it wasn't always that way. From 1850 to I believe 1924, we had our own racial classification as mulattoes. You can go back and look at people's birth certificates. It said race mulatto on it. Plenty of images of this. So it wasn't always that mulatto was black in America until 1924 with the Racial Integrity Act. Okay? So we were a different race. We were a different race. We were considered a different group of people for a long time, and then they just got rid of it. So it's not an objective thing. It's purely circumstantial.
It would be easier because it's a term that more accurately describes somebody's actual ancestry. Myself, in this particular case.
Okay, so the word mulatto, it's important to you, and you brought it up last time, and I think you wanted to make a clip out of it. I think you want to make a clip out of this, so I don't mind going into it with you a little bit. So the word mulatto, you said that the true origins of the word mulatto come
from... Potential.
Okay.
It's not verified.
Okay, the potential origins of the word mulatto comes from Arabic, Arabic culture identifying a mixed race person, Arabic and Caucasian or something along those lines.
Iberian, Arab and Iberian.
Sure. Okay. However, let's just say, for the sake of argument, that word to be the truth. Is that the way that it was used here in the Americas from
Yes.
white slowers?
Yeah, it was used to describe somebody of a broad characteristics, ancestry, phenotype, a family background, and basically those things would coalesce into a specific racial classification. They'd say this person's a mulatto. And to me, it wasn't just as you said, it wasn't just about grape or colonization and all these horrific acts. There was they created these distinct classifications to describe real people who existed. And so for me, regardless of the origins of the word, I would fall under that group of real people who existed based on my ancestry and my phenotype. And so I think that there's no issue with me reclaiming that word.
So the word mulatto, which the word mulatto is actually the original word. It is a Portuguese. It was founded by the Portuguese.
Here we go with the stump speech about the word mulatto.
And Spaniard people.
You know, here's what I don't. It's like it's always kind of the moral purity. It's just another way of policing you. You know, they want to talk about how mulatto means mule. Let's just grant that it does. Let's just grant that mulatto means mule. Donkey, horse. The mule is an exceptionally strong animal. Exceptionally strong. And it specializes in certain activities that horses and donkeys cannot do. That's how exceptional and capable and versatile the mule is. But leaving that aside, we can just re-signify it. We can just say, okay, it doesn't have to be the Spanish or Portuguese term. We can just use the English one where it's spelled with 2 T's. Okay, now it's okay. Or we can just get rid of one of the letters or whatever. We can re-signify it. It's fine. To me, it's not that deep. To all of us, it's not that deep. A lot of us embrace the word because it's us. It describes our history, our identity, our peoplehood, where we came from, who we are in the Americas as a unique, distinct population, African, European, black and white. That is who we are. That is who mulattoes are. We want that recognition. And all of that, our real identity, outweighs the whole mule thing. It does. It just outweighs it by orders of magnitude. So we're not caught up and butthurt about that the same way they are. They just want to police us and suppress our identity and be offended for us. It's bizarre.
Mulatto, which means what?
I think mula means mule. Mulo means mule. The whole word itself, like I said, the whole word itself. I have the scholars here. There's Rainier Spencer, Werner Solers, Jack D. Forbes, Julio Librado, and Robert C. Schwaller. All of these various scholars who talk about colonization in the New World. All of them have hypothesized, Jack D. Forbes being the most notable, that the word mulatto potentially, the whole word itself, could be a derivative of the older word mulad, which meant mixed, and it specifically describes somebody who was Christian, Muslim, or Arab and Iberian. So we don't know and that's the thing with words, we don't know the exact 100% verified etymology of these words. But what we do know is that it was a racial classification. We know that it described a certain group of people. And in my personal opinion, with anything, you can't put a life sentence on a word. You just can't. You just can't put life sentences on words. You couldn't put a life sentence on the word black. I know plenty of people who find the word black to be offensive. I've spoken to them. Some of them prefer black American. Some prefer African American. Some prefer Negro. I don't know. But all these things change.
And that's another thing. Some people prefer different words to describe their identity. It's totally valid. It's totally valid. Some people prefer different words to describe their own identity and build a sense of tribe and community based on that. Based on their own subjective preferences. It's whatever. So there will be a subset of black, white biracials who don't like mulatto. Okay? There will be some who do like mulatto. There will be some who are indifferent but prefer biracial or mixed. All of it is totally fine. As long as we are not being policed, the people who call themselves mulatto. As long as we're not being policed, then I don't care. But we have a right, a God-given right to that word. It's our identity. It's our people. You're not us. We have every right to defend it, identify with it, and we have every right to reclaim it. Because like I said, they're not us. That word was never applied to them. They were never a part of it. It was only us who had to wear that label. So we get to decide the future of that word and that identity, not these aliens, not these outsiders. I'm sorry.
My grandpa's birth certificate said Negro on it, right? In the 1950s, 1960s, the Black Power movement, they reclaimed the word black. Now people identify themselves as black, but not every black person calls themselves black because some of them don't like the word. And the same thing is true of not every black and white biracial person or mestizo and black person is going to feel comfortable with the word mulatto, but there are some of us who will, and a lot of us will feel okay with that word. The more we have this open kind of conversation, we kind of peel off that Band-Aid and get comfortable talking about it. So the whole idea of like, well, we're going to say, there's this verified etymology, we don't know that. On top of that, it was a real racial classification for hundreds of years until 1924. There's so much history associated with the word that we're not just going to throw it.
There you go. That as well. It was a real racial classification. And there's too much history associated with that word to just give it up. So we're not giving it up. That's our shit. That's our history. It belongs to us and nobody else. It is our history. Bottom line. In this side of the world, as African, European, black, white descended people, that is our word, our history, our identity, our people. That is us. That is us. And we have every fucking right to take it back. And nobody can tell us otherwise. I'm just tired of this policing shit.
All the way. At least I'm not. And at the same time,
too much history to throw it away. Way too much history to throw it away. Why would I ever throw away hundreds of years of history? Potentially even more. Why am I going to give all that up? Exactly. Give me one good reason why. For modern sensibilities? To be pressured to assimilate or something? The fuck out of here.
It's like other words have been reclaimed, so we have that right too. That's my whole argument,
So there are books written and documents that show where mulatto comes from and how it was used in the Americas. And the way that it was used, it was to define and or identify a person of a black parent and a white parent. Mulatto, meaning a half what?
Half black, half white. Oh, half donkey, half horse.
No, but the animals.
Yeah, it was half donkey, half horse,
half
right?
Donkey and half a horse,
right?
Which is a mule.
Sure. Well, mulo,
and
yes.
the origin.
It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. It fucking doesn't matter. We're taking it back. Bottom line, we're taking it back. You can be offended for us. I don't care. That's our identity. That is our identity. That is who we are. That biracial mixed stuff, that all came later. We were mulattoes before anything else. That was our original label. The OG. The genesis of all of this. That is where we come from. That is who we are. That is our origin story. All this other stuff, fuck it. I'm a mulatto. We're all mulattoes. Put some respect on it. That's our origin story. They want to just throw it all out because it's inconvenient to them? The fuck out of here.
It's not 100% verified, but sure. So go ahead.
Well, it is verified.
Mm-hmm.
And there's documents written, but whatever the case.
Either way, it's whatever, Older sensibilities.
Okay. Okay. So let me ask you, just with that said.
It's funny, they say, you want to be identified as a mule? Let him. No, just identify me as a mulatto. Don't come up to me and call me a mule. Just call me a mulatto. Very simple. Very simple. Identify me how I wish to be identified. Not rocket science.
Let's say it was proven to you with documentation that the word mulatto was to describe a half donkey, half, and that's why this product, if you will, was identified as. Would you still embrace it?
Yeah, sure. Why not? I don't care. Like I said, I don't think you should put any kind of license on a word. And like I said, it was a racial classification. For me, it's not like this. Oh my God, that's so horrible. That's the worst thing ever. Oh my God, like I don't have that kind of knee-jerk sensitivity to it. I think that there's so much rich history, so many heroes, so many figures who were described as mulatto associated with that word that we can re-signify it. It's fine. We can just say we'll just describe it from here on out. It doesn't have to be associated with any of these kinds of horrible things. We'll just say it specifically refers to people of black and white descent in the context that it's used. You think about the word black, it's associated with the Black Death, the Black Plague, blacklisting, black magic. The word black is associated with all these negative things. But when we're talking about black people, you're just talking about a racial group. Okay? It doesn't have to be associated with all these other kinds of negative adjectives or whatever. I look at it the same way. It's practical. I look at it practically. Very simple.
Okay. So I'm going to ask you some questions. They may be too personal. Please do not feel obligated to answer. Okay? You were raised by both parents?
Yes.
Okay. One of being black, one white.
Correct.
And these are the personal questions.
The lady says black is beautiful to me. Same with the word mulatto. Mulatto is a beautiful word.
Castizo. Right.
These are the personal questions that I want to ask. Don't feel obligated to answer if you don't like. However, I would appreciate it because it would allow me to understand certain things that I suspect here.
Look at these people in the comment section. This lady says he thinks he is white. You see how these people are just totally just like lost in the sauce. This is what I mean. Like you can't with I would say a good 60 to 70% of African Americans, you can't have serious conversation about this stuff with them because they're just totally lost in the sauce. Like they're never going to see it from your point of view. I always say it. I say with them, what happens is you will say something regarding the mulatto identity, they'll hear it, ignore 80% of what you say, process it through their own pro-black Afrocentric lens, misinterpret what you say, and then respond to that. That's kind of how many of them are. Hard to have discourse and be able to communicate with people who just think in different terms. It's very, very complicated. And that's how it is with the majority of them, unfortunately.
And if you answer him, I would hope that you're
Like,
honest
I don't think I'm white. I never said I was white. I know I'm not white. I'm a damn mulatto, bottom line.
and don't make things up just for the sake of content creating. Did your black father, was he a proud black?
Well, my dad wasn't black.
Oh, your dad was a white guy.
Sure, yeah, we'll say that, yeah.
And your mother was a black American?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
FBI, you could say.
Sure. Okay, so was your mother a proud black woman?
She was comfortable in her own skin, being black, yeah. She wasn't like it wasn't like her whole entire identity, but she was comfortable and proud in her own skin, for sure.
What did, if anything, what did she teach you regarding pride about who she was, if any?
I don't think we ever specifically talked about having like racial pride or anything like that. That wasn't like a theme in our household. Our household was kind of like Christian. And
what he's doing here is he's asking leading questions. He's trying to engage in some kind of like psychoanalysis or something here, this kind of like Freudian thing. Oh, your dad raised you in a white neighborhood and your mom wasn't super pro-black. Okay, now it makes sense why you want to call yourself mulatto. And see, this is the thing, right? It's all like he wants to pretend like he has a kind of neutral position on the mixed identity, on the mulatto identity, but he's clearly against it. He's clearly biased against it. Because what he's trying to essentially do is he's trying to associate people who identify as mulatto or mixed with a specific kind of anti-black or black avoidant upbringing. That's what he's trying to do. The guy is not neutral. He clearly has an agenda against mixed race people, clearly has an agenda against mulattoes. Let's just call a spade a spade.
So very Christian, and so that's kind of, we kind of centered it more on morals and values and family and things like that. Race was not a big conversation at all. So I would say, my mom was comfortable.
And I think that's a good thing.
In her skin, and I was around my black family members, family reunions, occasional holidays and things like that. But yeah, it wasn't like a big theme in our house, like racial pride, not a big theme in our house. It was more based on values and stuff.
Okay, what about your white father, if you will? What did he teach you, if anything at all, regarding pride?
He didn't really teach me anything either. My dad actually, funnily enough, actually kind of, I think maybe he wanted to actually kind of push me into black culture more. My dad grew up in LA in the 80s and 90s, and he was big on Jordan.
And he thought he was going to get me there. He thought he was going to get me to say my dad was anti-black and my dad didn't like black culture, but no, no. Like, let's be very clear. I came to the positions that I arrived at based on lived experience as a mixed race person. Had nothing to do with my parents. It was based on my lived experience and the ideas and identities that I was attracted to over time. Had nothing to do with my parents. This guy is like desperate, dependent on my dad, my mom, my upbringing. None of that has any impact on why I feel the way I do today. It's just, none of it's relevant.
He was big on basketball. He was big on, Notorious B.I.G.
Exactly. My dad was super into black culture. Super into it.
He was big on black culture. That was my dad's jam. And I think growing up, he mostly wanted me to just focus on getting a good education, focus on being a good person. I would say this, earlier in my life, my dad wanted me to, you could say, assimilate a little bit into the suburban neighborhood that we lived in. He wanted me to kind of assimilate, kind of wanted me to have a certain haircut. But I grew out of those experiences as I got older, and he got more comfortable with me doing that. And, I would say for the most part, my house, it wasn't like strong, like anti-black views or anything like that. It was mostly just, they wanted me to kind of like just fit in a little bit.
There was no anti-black views.
But they wanted me to try to fit in as much as possible. And
into the suburban
kind of white suburban area, the kind of white suburban neighborhood. But I would say, go ahead.
Do you feel like you did, even if it was just a small phase in your life? You think you did make efforts to fit into the white?
Yeah, I would say I did. Yeah, but then I grew out of it once college came around, and I kind of just became comfortable being my own kind of independent person. Like I didn't really feel as much pressure or need to kind of change who I was or assimilate into any particular culture. I was like, I am who I am. I had the experiences I had growing up. And I don't feel any kind of need or pressure to like de-whiten or whatever, get rid of all the white culture that I grew up with. I was like, you know what? That was my experience. That was how I grew up. I am who I am. I'm 20.
Exactly. And there's no shame in that. There's no shame in the fact that I grew up in the suburbs. There's no shame in the fact that You know, I might have grown up around white people and adopted their culture and whatnot. No issues with that. It's totally normal. It's totally fine. I don't have to apologize for it. I don't have to let it go. I don't have to be psychoanalyzed over it. That's what he's trying to do here. He's trying to present this like worldview that, you know, my experience as a mulatto man, as a biracial mixed race man, you know, who grew up in the suburbs, um, needs to be called into question morally, is essentially what he's doing here. He's trying to evaluate me morally. And it's like, I have nothing to apologize for because I've done nothing wrong. I'm just taking back my identity. If anything, we've been wrong. We've been suppressed. Our identity has been stolen and destroyed and brutalized and tarnished. So, you know, you can save me the stump speech and the kind of psychoanalysis here because it's not relevant.
2 years old now. I don't need to like try to fit into any particular culture. I can just be me. And basically, that was kind of my way out after college.
Okay. All right. So, if you don't mind me asking, when you were assimilating into whiteness, as your white father wanted you to, what were the means and efforts that you were making to assimilate into whiteness?
Assimilate might be a strong word. I remember when I was in middle school, though, like he wanted me to kind of like cut my hair or whatever at certain times. Like he didn't want me to get like certain haircuts, you know.
Like he didn't have an afro on you.
No, not that, but you know, he didn't want me to get like something like that fade where you get the fade and you get like the afro and whatnot, like that sort of thing. But like I said, as I got older, he was more like, you know what, you know, do your thing. You're older now. It was more of a thing when I was in like middle school, elementary school. But by the time I got to high school, he was, you know, just do your own thing basically.
So black father was into hip hop, loved Jordan.
He's not black. He's not black.
I'm sorry. Thank you for correcting me. I would have effed up right there. So white father who was into hip hop, was into Jordan, black culture, didn't want his child that was birthed by a black woman to be black.
Not necessarily. I think that he was worried because my dad grew up in the hood, right? My dad grew up in the hood. He grew up in I forgot, West Adams, somewhere like that, and he had a whole host of, you could say, troubling experiences as a kid, right? That was how my dad grew up, and I think for him, he kind of was worried that, you know, maybe those kinds of cultural influences, the rap music, certain elements of street culture. I don't want to say black culture, but certain elements of urban street culture, predominantly black artists, might have motivated him to behave in that way. And I think he had a kind of sensitivity to that. And so he kind of wanted to raise me to like, hey, don't listen to this kind of music, and kind of gravitate towards more conservative people. He wanted me to gravitate towards like Thomas Sowell. He wanted me to have black figures, but he wanted the black figures that I looked up to be, you know.
Exactly. And he wants to try to present it as if like, you know, my dad just didn't like black people and wanted me to avoid black people. My dad had a lot of respect for black people. MLK, Martin Luther King, those were like heroes to him, you know, but he wanted me to look up more to like Thomas Sowell, Neil deGrasse Tyson, these kinds of like intellectual black figures, as opposed to like, you know, celebrities and artists and whatnot, which I think is a good thing because that's a large part of the reason why I became, you know, a deep thinker. You know, I don't want to toot my own horn, but, you know, I graduated college, I had good grades, I read a lot. My upbringing is a huge part of that. So he wants to kind of like discredit my upbringing and just kind of like minimize it down to, oh, your entire upbringing was about like suppressing your blackness. No, but it was about expressing it in ways that my dad thought would be more constructive. That's it.
Neil deGrasse Tyson, right? He was big on Neil deGrasse Tyson. He was big on Thomas Sowell. So those were the kinds of black figures and black leadership my dad wanted me to idolize, as opposed to like, you know, athletes or rappers and stuff like that. Like I said, I don't think he was anti-black at all, actually. Many black friends love black people, married a black woman. I just think that certain kind of street culture, you could say, he was weary of, and he didn't want me to kind of mimic it. I think he was just conscious of that.
Okay. So you don't have to say the age necessarily. It'd probably be helpful, but you know, at what age did you find yourself no longer attempting to assimilate into whiteness and were doing, like in your words, doing your own thing?
College. Once I hit like 19, 20, I didn't care, because when I was in college, it was more diverse. You know, there was a wide array of cultures and people that I was around. Not a bunch of whites, and so you kind of just become more comfortable being yourself. You know what I mean? Like you don't feel like the same need to kind of do the whole song and dance with white people.
So from what age to what age did you were you assimilating into whiteness, if you will, if you can remember that?
I think assimilating is a strong word. I mean, I'll say this. I think that when you're in suburban America and you're a minority, you know, there's a kind of subtle, I feel like there's a slightly higher expectation of you, right, in terms of the way you got to conduct yourself. You know, I think that you have to be a little bit smarter, you have to be a little bit sharper, there's a smaller margin of error, I think, in regards to the kind of behavior you can get away with. And so I was just mindful of those things, but I never like fully assimilated into their culture. I grew up in the South. and in Texas, and I never assimilated all the way into their culture. I never got into hunting. I never got into fishing. I never got into off-roading. You know, that kind of Southern white culture. I just lived around a lot of white people, and you're just conscious, I guess, of that racial dynamic. You know.
Which, I mean, makes total logical sense, because if you're a white person growing up in Atlanta or the hood or something, you're going to adopt the kinds of cultural practices that are normalized in those communities, and you're going to pick up on it. So none of this is really, none of the kind of like moralizing is really necessary here. It's kind of ridiculous.
If somebody in public that you didn't know referred to you for whatever scenario you want to paint, if somebody out and about just, this young black man right here, would that bother you?
No. But I would probably correct. Maybe I'd correct them depending on the context.
No, I mean, it depends. If it's like, this is a stupid question. It's like if I'm at the grocery store and some older white lady says, "This young black man, very nice, he helped me through the store," I wouldn't care. I'm not going to correct her and be like, "Excuse me, man, I'm a mulatto." Like that's not really, that's not important in that kind of context. But if we're talking about like, if somebody asks me, "Hey, how do you identify?" I'd say I identify as a mulatto, or I refer to myself as a mulatto, right? If they ask me, I would just tell them, and I would hope that they would respect that. But no, I'm not going to tell some 6-year-old, lady at the grocery store who says, "This young black man," or whatever. Like, I'm not going to tell her, "Oh no, ma'am, I'm a mulatto." Like, it's just, I'm not doing all that. You know what I mean? This guy wants to like pin me as some kind of like anti-black individual. Like, no, sir, that's not the type of time I'm on.
But it wouldn't bother me.
Do you think
It's subjective,
Sure. Have you experienced that a lot? Being identified as black by just people, just like in the way that I just described?
Yeah, it happens. I'd say it's like 50-50.
Sure. What's the other 50?
Mixed or biracial, or what do you mix with? Something to that effect.
Right. So it's either 50% this young black man or this young what? Mixed man.
They don't assume. Yeah.
This young mixed man. You see, you see how he's laughing. He's trying to kind of like, he's kind of trying to like disprove my experiences by saying, that nobody's identifying you as a young mixed man. They're identifying you as a young black man. No, but it's more so people be like, "What are you?" You know what I mean? Like, they won't just assume. They'll ask, they'll probe, they're curious. They ask, "What do you mix with?" Some people just default to black, but a lot of people will just ask, So half the time they ask, half the time they'll assume. It's whatever. You know what I mean? No monoracial, unambiguous black person can say they've had that experience. So I don't understand like why he's even laughing.
They just ask. They would just ask.
So you mean to tell me you experienced somebody say, "This mixed young man right here"?
No, not that. But they'll.
No, you fucking idiot. Not that. Not somebody says, "This young mixed man." Nobody says that. But when they ask you personally, right? They're not just assuming. They ask you personally. You can clarify. It's very simple. And a lot of people, they don't know. You know what I mean? Like, a lot of people don't know. They don't want to assume, which is why they feel like they need to ask. No monoracial black person has ever been in that situation, ever.
Ask you which you are, as opposed to just assuming. Anytime race gets brought up, I don't remember very few situations in my life where people have been like, "That young black man." So, I don't know.
Oh, Lord.
Okay.
Yeah, the guy says people usually ask, "What do you mix with?" Exactly. And then they'll be like, "He's African American and Salvadoran." Like, it doesn't have to be as, the kind of identity doesn't have to be as simple as he makes it out. Like, people say, "Oh yeah, he's mixed, he's half African American, half Salvadoran." And people will just identify me that way. They don't have to identify me as just black. "Oh yeah, he's mixed." That's fine. Or he's African American and Salvadoran. Like, they don't have to push you into a racial category. You don't have to be flattened into that. It's not a big deal.
What are you, if you know, what are you categorized as in your birth certificate?
I think probably black, if I had to guess. Yeah, probably black.
Why do you think that was?
That's just how the government operates in the United States. They just say, "Hey, black,"
And this is a dumb fucking question, because there's plenty of examples of people who are black and white being identified as mulatto on their birth certificate. So it's like, this means nothing.
It's true. I mean,
like, it can change. It can easily go back.
Logic. Let me ask you this. By that logic, if the government says slavery is okay, no, of course not. If somebody commits a crime and everybody's like, "Hey, that guy is a savage," right? And The New York Times writes an op-ed about this guy, and everybody believes it. Does it make the guy a savage? No. So I think that kind of just going off what the government says, it's like, people pick and choose when to do that. It's not consistent. That's the problem I have. There's no consistency. I like consistency.
I was gonna ask you something else.
Let me ask you this, Ricardo. What is a black person, Ricardo? What is a black person? What is a black person? What does a black person look like? What is black? Let's start there. What is black?
Okay, here the problem is that there is no.
And this is finally me asking questions, trying to like take back the conversation, because he's kind of been dominating it the whole time with his own kind of like framing and stuff.
Definition, because of what I just explained to you, like that white lady with the wig, etc. It's a social construct.
So let me ask you this: the first people who were described as black, who were they?
Sub-Saharan black people, but if you're talking about
Exactly. And this is what I said. I said if a bunch of mulattoes were seen running around on the shores of West Africa, just a bunch of mulattoes, people who look like me, would the people who came on those ships, the Europeans, identified me as black, or the mulattoes as black? No, because we're brown. They would have called us something different. So the identity doesn't even totally suit us anyways, because it was never initially meant to apply to us. The word black was never initially meant to apply to us. It was never initially meant for mulattoes. It only came to be that way because a certain set of historical events transpired, but it was never meant to be our term.
West Africans, Sub-Saharan Africans, West Africans.
Mulatto was our term from the beginning. That was our original term. Black was some shit that got thrown on us. Biracial mix, that was some shit that got thrown on us later. We were initially mulattoes.
And when they were brought over here to the United States, what tribes, what ethnic groups did they come from?
Who?
The African Americans who were brought from Africa during the transatlantic slave trade.
Yeah, West Africans.
The West African, Sub-Saharan Africans. Igbo, Yoruba, Congo, Akars, Mende, Mandekwa, Wola, Fulanis, Temne, and Bundus. All these groups. What do they look like? What is their common physical appearance? What is their common phenotype?
See, and all the African tribes that were initially described as black, they look nothing like me. Right? So the term black was initially used to describe Sub-Saharan and West Africans. The term black was initially used to describe them. It was never used to describe us. Those tribes that African Americans descend from, they're all pure Bantu. They're not 50% European or 60%, European and something else. They're all just straight up Bantu. Those were the original black people. So that label has just kind of come to mean anything now. It's totally been expanded. And I'm like, no, I want to take back my original identity.
All those groups. Actual black people. The first described black people. Actual black people.
Here's the problem with that.
You asked me a lot of questions. I want you to answer that question.
Well, the evidence is there. Go to West Africa and you can see them, and they're there.
Correct. They're all dark skin, horsey hair, broad features. Those are the first original black people. That's what it's described. Mm-hmm. You bring them here, right? They all kind of mix together. They kind of become their own ethnic group or whatever. For a long time, that's how it was. It was mostly
this person saying I'm being facetious now that I'm actually like pushing back on the black label. You see how dishonest these people are? Very crazy.
Just these different assortment of African tribes coming together, having children, having families.
Right. They were black when they were, and they were only considered black at the beginning when they were an assortment of different African tribes. Once they became heavily European, they were seen as something different. It wasn't just black, it was mulatto. So that was the original dynamic, and then it just totally got reshuffled. And we totally just got thrown in that basket. So now we're taking back our identity, and we have every right to do it.
And that's what black was. That's what it was seen as.
Exactly.
And then, you have the introduction of the one drop.
But he doesn't, exactly, and he has nothing to say. He can't address it. He can't address it! He can't.
Sometime down the line when white slave owners started having children with African.
This person said mixed together. They didn't mix together. They were put in bondage. They were RAPE. Why do they always have to make it trauma? It's like they did mix together. They did. That's how they had an ethnogenesis. What other word do you want me to use? These people are so sensitive. So I can't say all these African tribes that came from Africa to the United States mixed together to become a new ethnicity. I can't say that, even though it's objectively correct. Oh my God. We live in the most sensitive, ridiculous generation ever. It's crazy. I shouldn't even be getting this emotional, but it's just wild, the insanity.
Slaves, right? Then they instituted the one drop rule. Why? because they were worried that mixed race people would become their own ethnic group or their
Exactly. The only reason we were denied our own racial category was because of the one-drop rule. And the one-drop rule was designed to prevent us from becoming our own socially and economically competitive class. That is what the one-drop rule was for. To prevent us from becoming our own socially and economically competitive class. So they stripped our identity, they took away our destiny, and they forced us into the black category. That is what happened to us. Our future as mulattoes was stolen. It was taken from us. And we want our shit back. Bottom line. And we're taking it back because that is who we are. That is who we were from the very fucking beginning. From the very beginning, that is who and what we were. It wasn't black, it was mulatto from day one.
Own competitive class. And so they figured it'd be better to just push them into the black category as opposed to letting them have their own specific class, even though racially and physically they understood them to be a different group of people. They're like, they look different. They have the term mulatto. They look different. They appear different. They come from a different background. But because of the one-drop rule, they got pushed into being black. So my thing is, for a long time, for most of human history, for most of American history, black
For most of human history, we're not identified as just black.
was associated with a specific group of people. It wasn't until political interests got in the way that they threw all these mixed race people into the black category for political reasons, not for phenotypical reasons, not for racial or genetic reasons. It was for specifically political and social reasons, nothing else. So we all know that actual black people, where they actually come from, they are West African, Sub-Saharan African. If I go to a West African or Sub-Saharan African nation, I would not be classified as black. The only consistent thing regarding race is your genealogy and your ancestry. Sure, here, some individuals might say, you're black, or you're this, or you're that. If I go there, where the actual blacks came from, totally different story. And I'll tell you this, it's the interesting thing. I have never heard you say anything about any of these quote-unquote FBAs trying to say, we're not African, you know, we come from...
And that's the crazy part to me. He wants to police Dominicans, he wants to police mixed race people all day for being anti-black, whatever that means. For basically, that just means you have a backbone and a spine and you'll stand firm in your own identity. That's what they mean by anti-black. But if he wants to police us all day about being anti-black or whatever, he wants to talk about how, you know, society just sees you as black and you shouldn't identify as mulatto or mixed or whatever. Okay, fair enough. But we are less genetically related to the standard African American than they are to a West African. But he never has anything to say about FBA trying to distinguish themselves obsessively from West Africans. They are obsessed with distinguishing themselves from West Africans. They are insecure about it. He never has anything to say about that, but he will police actual mixed people, actual mulattoes all day. Make it make sense. We are more different to them. We are more different from average black Americans as mulattoes, as mixed people, than they are to West Africans. Yet they will swear up and down that they're not the same as West Africans. But of course, Ricardo Ignacio has nothing to say about that. Why is he not going at Tariq Nasheed? Help me understand that. Why is he not going at Cameron? Because he's scared.
Native Americans, we come from Hebrew Israelites, we come from the Jews, we come from all these different groups. You've never said...
Exactly. He'll never police their identity, but he will police our identity. The fuck out of here, man.
Anything about FBAs doing that being a clear indication of mental illness or low racial self-esteem, because a lot of these African Americans look indistinguishable to West Africans and Sub-Saharan Africans. And if anything, genealogically, they are more close to them than I am to the standard African American. But you've never said anything about that. Why is that?
So what did you identify them as? As a people that suffer from what?
Low racial self-esteem.
And you said something else.
Low racial self-esteem. Well, no, I was asking you, why do you never say anything about the FBAs who deny being African?
You described them and identified as a people that suffer from what?
Low racial self-esteem.
You said something else.
What else did I say?
Mental illness.
Mental illness. There you go. Mental illness.
So I'm supposed to address people with mental illnesses?
Yeah, because it's becoming a major problem in society.
Do you suffer from a mental illnesses?
It's possible, but I don't know.
That's a stupid question.
Regarding your racial identity.
No, I don't think so. I think I know.
Somebody in the comments said I denied being African. I've never denied being African. I've never denied having African ancestry. That's what mulatto means. It means acknowledging your African and European lineage. Black and white. That's what it means to be mulatto. These people want to just like... These people are insane, bro.
It's possible, but I don't know.
Regarding your racial identity.
No, I don't think so. I think I know who I am.
What are you racially?
Mulatto. Or biracial, mixed, whatever.
So when people, which majority of this country, identify a black man, are they wrong?
Yes.
How could it be wrong if...
Because of my ancestry. Let me ask you this. I'll give you an example. Can you see this? Can you see that, Ricardo?
That's my older brother, who looks Middle Eastern. Looks Indian.
Yeah.
That's my older brother.
Okay.
Mulatto is a race. He says mulatto isn't a race. Mulatto is a race because if race is a social construct, what is it? What is it? Is race a social construct or not? Because if race is a social construct, then mulatto is a race. Mulatto can easily be a race. Easily it can be a race. Easily mulatto could be a race. Easily. It was on the census and it broke down the amount of genealogy of African DNA that you could have and what fit into the mulatto category. So mulatto absolutely is a race.
For a lot of his life, he was viewed as South Asian, Pakistani, Indian, because he has straight black hair. He has a lot of facial hair. He's actually Mexican, Irish, and African American. We have the same mom. Because society views him as a South Asian, does that make him a South
If it's not a pure race, whatever, it's a racial classification that has clear parameters around it. So that's enough for me.
Does it make him Pakistani or Indian?
Oh,
If it's just based on phenotype and how society
you
perceives him.
said he looks Pakistani, more or less.
Yeah, he's been identified as Pakistani or South Asian a lot.
That's a great question. I'm actually glad you asked it.
Does it make him South Asian? Even though he has no genealogical
Answer it.
ties.
Let me answer it to you. That's a good question. So I've been identified as a Filipino before.
Are you Filipino?
Nope.
There you go. The
What does
truth
it prove?
remains the same.
What does it prove?
That you're not Filipino. That your
No, no, no.
genetics determine what you are. Race is inherited. Bottom line.
No, you don't realize that you're proving yourself wrong.
I'm proving myself right.
Listen to
You're
what I'm
saying,
going to
you're saying it's just whatever society perceives you to be. That's BS. It's what your genetics say.
listen to what I'm going to explain to you. Listen carefully. So your brother who looks Pakistani, okay?
South Asian. South Asian.
Okay, Indian, whatever, Punjabi, okay? Respectfully, he's been confused as a Punjabi, right? I've been confused for other things too. I've been confused for a Filipino. Some people, very small percentage, I've only experienced this probably twice in my life. Some people thought that I was half black, half Mexican. Some people rarely, but it's happened to me.
I don't believe that.
What does this prove? It means that race is a social construct because people have identified. Listen to what I'm explaining to you. Because people out there have identified me in their own way. Are they right? Are they right? They're not right about my
It's not a
genealogy.
social construct.
Listen to what I'm explaining to you. Are they right about my genealogy and my ancestry? Of course they're not right. However, they just on sight, because of their understanding or lack thereof of what somebody looks like, they assume a particular ancestry. Obviously, they were wrong about the ancestry. However, they identified racially, whatever it is that they came up with. That proves that race is not a real thing. It's a social construct. Some people, listen, bro, some people will look at you and swear that you're Samoan. They will swear up and down you're Samoan. Some people will look at you and swear you're this. Why? Why would they swear that you're Samoan or any other ancestry that you don't even have?
Because they're using your logic. Because they're using your logic.
Which logic is that?
Your logic is that all of this is based on society's opinion. That is what you're saying. You said race is based on society's opinion. And that's not true. It's not based on society's opinion. It's not.
They're going based on what you look like.
Because if it was based on society's opinion, society gets so many things wrong. Society is wrong
Exactly.
about so many things. If society came out today and said, the earth is flat, would you say the earth is flat because society believes it? No. If I came out with a cult and I told the cult, saying, hey, I'm a superhero master of the universe, I'm Captain Told You So, and the whole cult believed me, does that make it true? No. The only thing that is a consistent
Exactly.
factor and measure is ancestry and genealogy. That's it.
Right.
That's it. And anything else is wrong. Anything
Exactly. Bingo. Bottom line.
else society says it's just wrong. I said,
Let me ask you a question.
let me just is this correct? Is this correct or not? The understanding.
Exactly. We can evolve. Exactly. Yeah. Whatever. Shout out to Dree Legend in the chat. Yeah. The guy right here. The conversation can evolve. The more we have this conversation openly and we kind of normalize kind of separating the mulatto phenotype from like the standard African American, Black American phenotype, the more easy it will be for society to tell us apart.
A way black person.
And then we'll be able to really have our own kind of, we'll be able to have social recognition, you could say,
was consistent for a
on the basis of us being mulattoes.
very long time. It described a certain people from a certain place with certain features and certain characteristics. That is what it meant to be black for a long time. It wasn't until it became socially inconvenient to change the definition of black, or it became socially convenient to change the definition of black, that they basically were like, hey, we're not going based on genealogy or what it was like for a long time. It became about.
And that's an important thing to keep in mind, because that's actually a very important point I made, because race was not always just strictly based on phenotype. It was based on your ancestry. in the United States for a long time until the one drop rule. The family you came from is what would determine your race. That's what determined what was on your birth certificate, not just society. Society. It changes. It's not one strict thing, and it can easily go back. So I'm tired of being told I have to just accept it for how it is now. No, sir. We're mulattoes. We've been here for a long time, and we're fighting for our identity and our place in the world so that things can go back to the way they were, or that so things can go back to a place where we actually have our own identity respected in the world. Because that's how it was for a long time.
Political interest. That's why the one drop rule was mandated, even though for the vast majority of time, we all knew what black people looked like. They looked a specific way. They had specific features, a specific skull shape, a specific nose bridge, and that only that group of people possess. That's how it was understood for a long time. And now they want to change it and remix it because it's not in their social interest, and I'm not going for that. It's very simple.
When people look at you and they identify blackness there,
Yeah.
why is it that they identify blackness? Because of which features?
I would say it's because of my hair texture, probably.
Right. Your sub-Saharan features, yes?
Sub-Saharan African, I don't know if I'd say so, because my hair texture is not common in Sub-Saharan Africa. They have much coilier hair. You can only get 3A hair. You can only get textured 3 hair, really, if you have European DNA. Or if you have a mixture of other racial groups' DNA.
Exactly.
If you're just pure African, just pure West African, pure Sub-Saharan African, you're not getting type 3 hair. That's not...
Exactly. And that's another important caveat to add. It's like, if you don't have some kind of like white or some other admixture from a population with a different hair texture, you're not going to get type 3 hair. Like, if you have pure Bantu, pure West African, pure Sub-Saharan African, you're not getting type 3 hair, bro. It's not happening.
There's one group, the Fulanis, because they have some ancient West Eurasian DNA, you might be able to get some type 3 in there. But if you just got straight Bantu in your blood, you're not getting type 3 hair. That's not happening. This is a fact. It's a fact. If we're going off phenotype, that's a phenotypical genetic fact.
These people are so desperate. These people are so desperate to like look at them arguing in the chat. They're so desperate to like claim our phenotype. It's crazy. They're so desperate to like prove to us that like West African people have type 3 hair and narrow features. Like, it's just not a thing, dog. It's not a thing. You're not going to find West Africans or Sub-Saharan Africans that have type 3 hair. I don't even think it's very rare. It might be some kind of genetic mutation, but it's extraordinarily rare. Extraordinarily rare. At the population level, it's not common whatsoever. Whereas with mulattoes, it's very common to have our hair texture. That's really the biggest tell between us racially.
So I'm going to ask the question again because you didn't answer it. So when people have identified you as black, what features are they?
I have the hair of a mixed race individual. Bottom line. That's it.
Okay.
It's that simple.
So then why have so many people
Bingo.
identified you as black?
I do not have the hair of a West African.
Why?
Because they're wrong, and society is dumb, and they're wrong, and society gets so many things wrong.
Which features? Answer the question.
Right,
Which features are they looking at that they identified you as black?
It's immaterial. It's immaterial because it's wrong. You can only get my hair texture when you get a combination of different racial groups or different ethnic groups. That's it. That's the only way. You can't have pure Bantu and get type 3 hair. It's impossible. It's just impossible.
Exactly. And they're trying to kind of deny the genetic the essentiality of genetics to phenotype in this racial conversation, but you can't because your genetics determine how you appear in the world. And my genetics are very different from a standard kind of Black American, standard West African, which is why I look so different. You know, in terms of like my hair texture, my nose shape, craniofacial structure, it's just not the same.
You have to have a certain genetic mixture of features to get my hair texture. That's it. It comes down to genes. It's in the genes.
Have you ever heard of a phrase? I'm sure you have, but I'm going to ask you for the record. Have you ever heard a phrase that Black Americans, I believe, came up with? It says, it goes, black people come in all colors. You ever heard that?
That's wrong. That's false. That's false information. That's cool. I would say this.
Have you heard that?
I have, and it's wrong. Society is wrong. I know what a black person looks like. Let me ask you this. Are you familiar with the common study that cites that African Americans have 25% or 24% European DNA? Have you heard that?
Somebody said the police don't care about your scientific spin. It's funny because the police aren't relevant to this. We're talking about a different racial classification for people who look mulatto and people who look just black. Like, that's what we're talking about. They always got to bring up the cops.
All these FBAs running around saying, I got 25% European DNA.
That's not again.
I say you got all these FBAs, all these African Americans running around saying, I got 25% European DNA, right? That's false information. That's fake news, okay?
That study, it's important that we get this out here and clarify. that study that they're referring to when they say the average African American, which is not black, by the way, but the average African American has 20, because African American is an ethnic group. The average African American has, and race and ethnicity are not the same. The average African American has 24% European DNA. There's that whole study. That's a study from 2015, which basically not randomly, but basically just took 5,269 responses from Ancestry.com from people who self-identified as African American, and then the average was like 24%, and they said that's the average for African Americans. And it's like, well, first off, that could include biracials, that could include MGMs, whatever, who just identify as African American. But even then, most of the people who responded to that particular, or most of the people whose responses were included in that particular study were from New York and California. New York and California, the black people who live there have more European DNA on average. So that already skews the results. But even then, there's a selection bias, because if people who take their DNA tests are more likely to have a diverse ancestry, right? So they're more likely to want to know where they came from because it's not as obvious, right? And so that also can skew the results and kind of lead to more European DNA being found. The most reliable nationally, and that study also was not nationally representative. The most reliable nationally representative study we have regarding European admixture within African Americans is from a 2016 study by Bahrain, 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 2016, and his study took a randomly selected sample that included 3,726 people, and they found that in the randomly selected sample of 1,500 people, that the median, and this sample was nationally representative, the median European admixture was 16.7%, right? So 50% have more than that, 50% have less, but it's far, far, far from that 24% European DNA average, that's in like the upper percentile. You know, and like I said, you could be talking about MGMs and biracials at that point, who I don't really consider to be black. So that kind of fudges the numbers. When you take them out, it's much different. Numbers a lot lower. And so it's important to just clarify that. You know, it's important to clarify that European admixture thing, because it's a myth that they like to spew, and it's just not the truth.
Americans running around saying, I got 25% European DNA, right? That's false information. That's fake news, okay?
So the point I'm making is, like, you can be African American ethnically, right? If you're 50% or 25% African American, you can still be ethnically African American, but not racially be black. You know, because I don't understand how are you racially black if you're 30% African? It's very curious. So I would say we need to kind of divorce between the African American ethnicity and the black race, because they're not really the same thing.
The averages are lumping in people who are biracial and MGM and Creole, people with heavy European admixture, who might not even look black, but they get called black in the United States, and they might not look black, right? These studies are lumping in people like that under the banner of African American, because African American is not a race, it's an ethno-cultural group. So you can have people who are quadroons who are considered African American, but they're not racially black. They're not racially black, in my opinion. So the whole 24% European DNA average is based on 23andMe results that are not nationally representative. There's the only reliable study we have to denote how are not nationally representative. The only reliable study we have to denote how much actual European ancestry the average African American has is a 2016, it's nationally representative. A 2016 study from Bahrain ETAL. It took 3,726 participants, and they took a sample, 1,500 people from the health and retirement study, nationally representative, and it said that the median amount of African DNA was 16.7%. 16.7%. 16.7%, right? That is what actual black people look like. They have that amount. It's in that range, 15 to 20%. It's that simple. Black does not come in all shades and all colors. That's just wrong. Those people are too mixed, way too mixed, to just lump them into the black racial category. I don't know what to say. Because we know what black looks like. So it's just like, we got to base it off of something real. We got to base it off of something objective. And you even hear these people saying, when you put mixed race people in black roles, you're erasing what black people actually look like. They're right.
Exactly.
They're right when they say that. Because people understand there's a distinction between mixed and black. They understand there's a distinction. They can pretend like that's not the case, but it's the truth. And the DNA backs that up.
So the reason why I brought up the whole the phrase "black people come in all colors"?
80% up, or you're not black.
Why do you think that would? Why do you think that phrase, or how do you think that phrase came about?
They're not black. They're African American. They're not black. Let me give you an example. Katherine Johnson.
I am asking.
I'm cooking right now. Because here's the thing, Ricardo is the guy who always talks about how ethnicity, nationality, race, whatever, these are all different things and people conflate them, which is true. But, you know, the way I look at it is, well, okay, Katherine Johnson is ethnically an African American, right? But racially, how could you identify that woman as black when she looks very white? It makes no sense. So they're the ones who want to kind of conflate African American and black. They want to like bundle those things together, even though they're not the same. It's just bizarre.
Sorry, go ahead.
You're cutting off a little bit there.
Sorry,
I was just simply asking you a question. How did this phrase came about?
Black comes in all shades.
Why did this phrase?
The reason they say black comes in all shades is because it's hard to kind of. I don't really agree with that statement, but it came into fruition to kind of bridge together everybody under the African. I don't really agree with that statement, but it came into fruition to kind of bridge together everybody under the African American umbrella. And so, if you're under the African American umbrella, you can be a quadroon. You're not black, but you're African American, and those words are sometimes treated as interchangeable. African American and black, they're not the same thing. They're just not. They're different concepts. So the reason they say black comes in all categories is to basically say anybody who's 25% or 50% white, they're technically African American, so we'll just call them black. We'll just bring them on board. You say yourself, race.
Exactly. Not every African American is black.
And ethnicity are not the same.
I know it sounds crazy. I know it sounds backwards, but it's the truth, in my opinion. Not every African American or self-identified African American is black.
Concept.
I don't consider Steph Curry black. He might be African American because of genealogy, family history, I should say, but he's not black.
Correct?
It's not. Of course, it's not.
Right. So that would, to me, when I see a black person, I know what a black person looks like. You can be an African American and be mixed, but they're not the same thing. So when they say, you know, black comes in all shades, what they're really saying is African Americans come in all shades. That would be a more correct statement. Not black. Black does not come in all shades. African American comes in all shades.
Let me tell you why and how.
Exactly. Bingo. Black does not come in all shades. Black is dark skin. Black is black. African American can come in different shades because there's, you know, the European admixture with some of them, but it's not black. It's not the same thing. So African American, sure, you can have light skinned African Americans, but they're not really true black people, you know.
That came about.
They're just too mixed.
Because black people, and let's specify since you want to be specific, black American people have understood over the years, and I shouldn't be telling you this because you're one of those people, but I guess I have to tell it to you anyway. Black American people have understood in the history of this country that no matter how mixed and watered down you may be.
Notice I asked to throw the watered down in there.
You are identified as
very good.
Black, therefore treated as such in the society as well as systemically.
And now we gotta move on. Now we gotta move on. It's time to move forward into a new future.
How do you move on if people are still treated as black just because of their features?
Wait, so this lady hold on. Somebody left an interesting comment.
Well,
the lady says people with pure African DNA come in all shades too. First off, I never said African. I said Sub-Saharan African and West African. Second, they do not come in all shades. Those people are dark-skinned people. Let's stop lying to ourselves. The vast majority are dark-skinned people. The ones who are not have some kind of mixture. So let's stop the cope. I am a mulatto, bottom line. I fit the genealogy and the ancestral qualifications to belong to that people group. So they just want to, that is more specific and more accurate to me. Black just encompasses anybody, which actually engages in the erasure of the black phenotype.
Systemically.
And now we gotta move on. Now we gotta move on. It's time to move forward into a new future.
How do you move on if people are still treated?
Notice how these delusional people in the comments are talking about albinoism or albinism being evidence that black people can come in all shades. And it's like, that's a genetic mutation. Like, that's not about just skin complexion or racial identity. That's a genetic mutation. That's a defect. Like, that's not an example of what? The mental gymnastics are crazy.
As black just because of their features, even if they have just a little bit of features there, they're
changing. It's changing because of social media. It's changing. And we're having a conversation now, and it's forcing the change.
Let me pause you right there. Okay, it's changing. However, according to you, it's changing. However, there's a mulatto person out there. He gets pulled over by a cop and gets beat down because he is black. Never mind his white mama. It don't even matter. I'm only gonna beat you down 50%.
Always a top example. Very good. Very good. I like the top example. That's a go-to.
I'll use another example. If you right now went into a sundown town, are they gonna spare 50% of you?
No, they're going to discriminate. Because they're just racist. That's why. They're racist to anybody who looks like they have black ancestry, discernible black ancestry. That's true. That's an objective fact. Yeah. But that doesn't deny all the other experiences I've had in my life that remind.
How does that make me any less mulatto? How does me being harassed by racist white people make me less mulatto? Like, what is his point? That's irrelevant to my racial identity. It's totally immaterial. I'm still a mulatto at the end of the day. Like, when I wake up and when I go to sleep and when I live my life, I'm still mulatto. Regardless of what some racist, cracker has to say about it. Give me a break.
Mixed. You can't just go based on the negative experiences, but go ahead.
Okay, but thank you for the answer. The only difference between what you just answered, you said because they identified black, right?
They would do it to anybody, but yes.
Yeah, okay, fair enough.
If they found out a quadroon had a biracial dad, they'd beat his ass too.
Okay, great. What you just explained applies to society. The only difference is that in the sundown town, these people are hateful about blackness. In society, maybe not everybody is necessarily hateful or as hateful as the people in the sundown town. However, they also identified what those people identify down there, which is what? The blackness. Am I wrong?
No, you're not wrong, but what does that change about the genetics? What does that change about the ancestry? What does that change about the truth? I'm about the truth. I believe in the truth. I don't believe in anything else but the truth.
Boom. Got him. I don't believe in anything else but the truth. And mulatto is the truth.
I believe in the truth and standing on the truth. And I'm not standing on anything else but the truth. Just because, let me tell you why, Ricardo. Let me tell you why. If somebody can define who you are, if somebody can define your identity, they can dictate who you are. If somebody can dictate who you are, they can dictate how you think. If someone can dictate how you think, they can dictate how you behave. And if somebody can dictate how you behave, you are a slave. You have no freedom, no autonomy. It is incumbent.
Right. The guy in the chat was cooking. He said society is anti-mulatto, not anti-black. Correct.
How you behave.
Society is anti-mulatto. They're anti-mulatto, 100%.
You are a slave. You have no freedom, no autonomy. It is incumbent. It is an obligation for us. It is an obligation for us to define ourselves, because if we don't, we're just screwed. If we don't, we're always going to be subservient. That's just what it is.
Boom.
But they have to stand up.
Let me stop you and ask you something. Have I ever, although we've known each other for 2 days, in our discussions, have I ever tried to argue and debate your ethnic background?
No, you have not. You have not.
Why did
you? Not to me.
To nobody. No matter which video you ever watch, I never debate their ancestry because I don't know it. I don't know it. I don't know your ancestry. I could only go based on. I take your word when you tell me that your mother is black and your father is white. I take your word for it. I never bothered arguing this. Meaning what? That I'm not trying to control your identity. Guess what? When a person identifies me as a Filipino, I don't feel like they're trying to control anything. It's just society. This is how society works.
Certain aspects of society. Not all of society. Certain aspects. That's the problem. Wait, real quick, Ricardo, because the problem is that people always narrow in. It's always the cops, the racists, the legal system. It's like, what about all the other experiences where that is not at play? What about random social gatherings? What about in the workplace? What about, in day-to-day life when you interact with random people?
Exactly. They want to reduce your entire identity to negative experiences in society when people weaponize your blackness against you, right? But they don't talk about the other experiences when people are curious about your background or ask you about what it's like to be mixed or, ask you about what you are. Like, they want to kind of just bypass all that. And they also want to bypass and ignore the internal experience of navigating those two identities. They want to just totally ignore that. So, I mean, yeah, it's just totally inconsiderate to us, what the guy is doing. Very disrespectful. Very, very, very disrespectful.
Who might ask you about, I don't know, your hair texture. That's happened to me before, right? Just random stuff like that, random one-off incidents. None of those things get taken into consideration. It's only the negative experiences where that becomes the case, which I would agree with you on. That does happen. But hold on, real quick. Why is it my obligation to define my identity solely through the negative things society is going to do to me? What logic does that make? That is a submissive, servile mindset. I'm not going to define my... Exactly.
That's servile and submissive. It's a defeatist mindset, and I'm a winner. And mulattoes are winners.
Entire identity through all the negative things that might happen to me. I'm going to take into consideration the entirety of my experience, which is more accurate, and build an identity based on that. It's very simple.
Okay, so let's grab some of those positive, non-racist, aggressive scenarios.
Maybe not positive, but neutral.
Okay, neutral. Let me grab some of those. So in neutral scenarios, do you think people out there that are not racist, etc., when they look at you, do you think that they notice your black features, if you will?
When people who are not racist, do they notice my black features?
On a regular neutral basis, as soon as just people in general look at you, do you think that they identify black features?
Yeah, definitely, of course.
That's my point.
Mm-hmm.
That's my
point. That doesn't change anything, but yeah.
That doesn't change what? That's my whole argument. This whole argument is literally that, and you answered yes.
Yeah, but all I'm saying is, like, there are people who've been complimenting, they'll compliment you, I would say, on my physical appearance, on my hair texture, right? I'm not trying to toot my own horn, but I'm just saying it's a thing that happens. Or people who have a more acute sense of race will be like, what do you mix with? You look different. Stuff like that. Random people. This has happened to me numerous times, okay? So, like I said, I'm taking into account the entire thing. Of course, no question, the black features I have are undeniable. That's just true. But I'm saying it's obvious. It's obvious that I'm heavily mixed. It's just obvious based on how I look. And I wouldn't apply that same logic to a lot of African Americans. That's what I'm saying. So I think that, it's just strange to kind of want to expect me to build my whole racial identity on a limited set of experiences.
Right. And it's like we need to build our identity on the totality of our experiences, on the history of who we are, on our family background, our ancestry, our genealogy. That is what we should be basing our race off of, not just whatever the hell society says. Fuck out of here with that nonsense. We're much more complex and much deeper beings than that.
Or, like you said, how the negative things that might happen to me in society. That just, to me, doesn't really make a lot of sense. Hold on. That's my own opinion.
You looking through your notes or what?
Yeah, I was looking through my notes. I was going to ask you, in regards to the question on race and ancestry, because this is really the big, or race and ethnicity, because this is really the biggest kind of sticking point here. I look at race as a very specific genealogical and phenotypical thing, right? And I'll give you an example. There's a woman who's considered black. She's considered black. Katherine Johnson. She's an African-American woman. Katherine Johnson was in the hidden.
And by the way, I'll just show you guys what Katherine Johnson looks like, so you guys understand why I have to force the distinction between African-American ethnicity and the black race, so you guys understand. Look at this woman. Is that really a black person? I mean, come on. I mean, this is a mulatto, right? Like, this is clearly a mulatto, clearly a mixed race woman, clearly, like, I mean, this is just, that's not a black woman. I don't know what to say. So, she can be African-American, that's fine, that can be her ethnicity, but racially, she's not black. Racially, she's mulatto. Or mixed, or something like that. She doesn't fit into the black racial category. I mean, just look at her. The hair, I mean, come on. The face, she could have passed as white. Depending on who you ask. So, yeah, no. The insanity knows no bounds. That's why you have to distinguish between African American as an ethnic group and black as a race. They're not the same thing. That woman is not black. That is not a black woman, under no circumstances.
Hidden figures. She was a MGM lady from Louisiana.
She's only black in a very specific historical and social context. That's it.
From Virginia, and she looked like she could be white, and she had straight hair, and she was responsible for getting, I forget the name of the specific astronaut, but getting him into the moon. Right? If you look at this woman is not black at all. She can't. There's not really anywhere where she could go and be considered black, but she was considered black. Katherine Johnson. You can look her up right now. And to me, it's like, that to me doesn't make any logical sense. Doesn't make any logical sense.
Well, why was she identified as black? Because I don't know.
She was an African American. She was an African American. That's why. Even though she didn't.
African American. What does that mean?
An African American. It's a. There's somebody who has a definition of it. Okay.
It's an ethnocultural group. That's what it is. African American's not a race. It's an ethnocultural group. So you can belong to the culture and have some ethnic ties, but not be racially black.
African American.
And the one-drop rule is proof of this.
American ethnicity in general consists of shared history, common name, common myth of descent, distinctive shared culture, a sense of solidarity, and association with specific territory. Nowhere in that definition is genealogy. There's no genealogy, no biology in that definition of ethnicity. So technically speaking, you could be white passing, but have shared history, a common culture, a common myth of descent, distinctive, a common name, a sense of solidarity, and association with a specific territory. And you could be an African American and still, be white passing, but share all those things in common with other African Americans. So it's not based on genealogy. It's based on all those other things that I just mentioned. She falls into that category.
It also doesn't say anything about features. Okay, so it's important to keep that in mind. Being an African American is not based on features. And race is based on features. Let's be very clear about that. So an ethnocultural group or an ethnicity is defined by a shared name, a shared history, a shared culture, a sense of solidarity, okay? A sense of kinship. But genealogy, ancestry, phenotype has nothing to do with it, okay? So you can belong to an ethnic group and not have a shared phenotype at all. You can look wildly different. You can be different races and belong to the same ethnic group. Exactly, right? Exactly. You can be, you can be Palestinian. You can be Arab. You can be Levantine, but you can still be a part of the Lebanese ethnic group, depending on your upbringing, right? So it's not based on phenotype. It's not based on genealogy or ancestry, okay? It's based on having those things in common: shared name, sense of solidarity, common culture, common history. Genealogy is not a part of that definition of an ethnic group. So somebody who is white passing or mostly white genealogically and in regards to ancestry can still be a part of the African American ethnic group. That's possible because that's how they one-drop people in this country. So you can separate the black race from the African American identity because they're not the same thing. Plenty of white passing people, white presenting people who are considered African American. Jason Kidd, prime example.
Even though she's not racially black.
Not racially black, but is considered African American.
Does that make sense? So you can be an African American and not be black. And when people say
exactly,
you look
wait. You can be African American and not be black?
Not look black, yes.
I mean, what is Elon Musk? What is he?
He's not. I guess he's African American technically. Yeah. Right.
So I think that's why it's important.
But he just isn't a part of that culture, so I would say he's not a part of it.
I think that's why it's important that black people have chose to be identified as either Black American or FBA because of what you just explained. But
they say they don't look African. How does that make sense? Why don't you ever call that out?
Bro, listen to
they look like Africans.
Bro, you yourself acknowledge that Black American people have a history of people being great.
Yeah. And what difference does that make?
What difference does that make? A big difference.
In regards to saying you're not African, they look African. Many of them.
Okay, do you look African?
No, I look mixed.
Respectfully, a lot of these Black American people, they look mixed too.
Yeah, I would agree, and I would say they're not really black. Yeah, I would say that, yeah.
They're not racially black, no. They might be African American, but they're not racially black. Correct, yes.
They're saying I look African. That's funny.
I feel like you're being disingenuous at this point.
I'm not. Like I said, for me, I guess I could pass as black, but how do I explain this? Because I'm not being disingenuous. To me, a black person, there's only certain geographic places where black people exist. After a certain point, they come over here, they mix with so many other groups, they're not really black anymore. Not in my opinion. Because there's so many other things going on. Right.
Yeah, exactly. It's my opinion. It's all based on social constructs and opinions, right? No? I thought that's what race was based on, right?
But a lot of researchers would even agree with that statement, I would think. Right? Biologically, genealogically. So, I think, to be honest with you, African American as an identifier, it's kind of become like a catch-all for a lot of people who look very different. You know what I mean? There's so many different appearances, phenotypes that could be lumped in as African American, even if they don't look black, is what I'm telling you.
Boom, got him.
And those terms get conflated.
Jason Kidd is an African American. Is he racially black? I mean, come on, man.
In this country.
By the way, I'll just show you guys Jason Kidd. This is Jason Kidd, okay? Is Jason Kidd African American? There you go. So look at this. He's African American, right? Jason Kidd, African American, right? Because of the one drop rule. His father is African American. His father is black. What do they say about you? You your daddy see, right? You your daddy see. What your daddy is what you are, right? That's what they say, right? Okay. Let's look at Jason Kidd's dad. Let's see if I can find Jason Kidd's parents. Okay. That's strange. The one drop rule really fucked everything up. Well, I guess, is this Steve Kidd? That's not, no, that can't be Jason Kidd's dad. Interesting. Well, anyways, this is Jason Kidd, right? Let's go back. Professional basketball player from the Dallas Mavericks. This is Jason Kidd. Now, Jason Kidd could pass for a white guy, right? Easily he could pass for a white guy. That's Jason Kidd, okay? But is he racially black? Is this when you see this guy, do you see a black man? Is he racially black? No, but he's ethnically African American. So like I said, you can be African American and not be black. This guy's African American, he's not black. We need to start understanding that there's a distinction there. Because what does Ricardo always say? There's a difference between ethnicity and race, right? Okay, so let's recognize that distinction.
My only issue is that you are determined to argue that your ethnic background should be tied to your racial identity, and that has never worked and will never work. Doesn't work like that. Society doesn't function like that because that's not what race is. I mean, that's my only argument ever.
I think it changes. Ricardo. I think it changes over time. And it's context dependent. Yeah, it's context dependent.
Of course it has changed. And now we are in a generation where you want, I mean, this has been your argument, you want black to look like the non-mixed sub-Saharan Africans. That's what you are determined that black is. But black,
that's the proper definition. That's what it was initially. Yes, correct.
Originally, that's who was identified as black. Okay.
Right.
Exactly.
But times change. Times change. And now anybody that has black features like you do is identified as black.
Okay, let me ask this. Why was mulatto on the census? Why was mulatto put on the census?
What year was this, sir?
This was before 1924. I don't remember exactly when it was put on the census. It was put there in the 19th century. Why was mulatto put on the census?
Okay, what year and for how long was it there?
I'd have to double check that. I don't know off the top of my head.
You don't got your notes, sir?
I didn't put that specific thing in my notes, no. But I know it was on the census until 1924. I don't remember exactly when it was put in. But I'm asking you, it was on the census for a given period of time. Why? Somebody said 1790, 1920. Why was it on the census? Fair enough.
Whatever the case.
Why was it on the census? If all these populations look the same, why was mulatto on the census?
Okay. Why was it removed?
Well, answer my question first, and I'll answer your question.
Why was it there? I don't know.
Because it was based on ancestry.
Right. And he got him. Got that nigga. Got his ass. See, he wants to ask, why was mulatto removed from the census? And it's because it wasn't politically convenient. It was politically inconvenient to have it there. That's the reason why they got rid of it. Simple as. But from day one, we were recognized as a distinct people, African and European. We were recognized as a distinct people, a distinct population from black from day one. That's how it was from the very beginning. From the very beginning, that's what it was. From the very beginning, from day one. And then they wanted to just change it and throw it all up in the air because, it wasn't politically convenient anymore. But from day one, we were recognized as a different people, a different population. And that was for a reason, because they knew we were a different people, genotypically, genetically. So all of this was just thrown into disarray because of the, insanity of the American racial system. And it's like, why do we have to submit to that exactly? I don't want to submit to that. I'm good.
That's why. It was based on ancestry. Okay, it was based on family background, ancestry, and phenotype to some extent too. But it existed as a specific classification to describe a distinct group of people. That's the whole point I'm making. We exist as a distinct group of people. I'll just say this. It drives me crazy because
we exist as a distinct group of people. Correct.
A lot of these African Americans that you're referring to, the light skins, who are outliers, by the way, outliers. Majority of African Americans have a standard look, medium brown, dark brown. They're in that range. The light skins are outliers. Let's just start there. But I'll say this. These specific populations, hold on, I just lost my train of thought. They, I lost my train of thought. What were you going to say?
Yeah, I mean, I'll
get it, but go ahead.
Okay, let me go back to the mulatto.
Sure.
So, what I am going to give you is that originally, the way the mulatto identity came about on humans was to identify somebody with a black parent and a white parent.
I remember what I was going to say. Sorry to cut you off, which is what I had, by the way. But I'll say this. It existed to describe a distinct population of people, a distinct group of people. Whether or not we're a different race is ultimately immaterial. I'm concerned with us being identified as a different, distinct group of people, because I think we're entitled to that. But I'll say this. African Americans who have European admixture, decent European admixture, at the end of the day, they have no living memory associated with that. They have
Exactly.
They didn't grow up with white relatives. They don't have any white grandparents or parents. All their parents belong to
No living memory. Precisely. Most mulattoes, we have a living memory with our white relatives. Most African Americans, self-identified African Americans, do not. They do not have a living memory with their white relatives or Hispanic relatives. They have no living memory associated with that. We do. That distant European admixture, 16%, whatever, they didn't interact with any, white relatives growing up. Any white grandparents or great-grandparents growing up. We did. You know what I mean? That's the difference between a mulatto and an African American. Living memory is another huge element to this.
one ethnic group and more or less have a similar appearance. They're all African American, right? So just because they have that distant European admixture from 4 or 5 or 6 generations ago, and that kind of was passed on to multiple generations, that is not the same as somebody who has a living experience, a living memory associated with their white family or Hispanic family and black family. The reason mulatto existed as a classification was to describe 2 distinct groups of people, okay? Whether or not the race thing is up to me, it's neither here nor there on some level. I think you have a valid point when you say, a lot of people just identify as black. That's true. But at the end of the day, there's 2 distinct populations of people. And I would say I belong to that distinct population based on my ancestry. It's very simple. They don't have any claim to that. They are African American for multiple generations, and they have European admixture. It is what it is. But they have no living memory associated with their European, Hispanic, or white relatives. They just don't. They're just African American, bottom line. And I'm a mulatto, and we're a different group of people, and that's okay.
Okay, I'm not going to even argue what you said, but I am going to say this. And yet,
because he knows it's true.
Both of you, both them and you, are identified as black because of your features.
Possibly.
Not in every context. He keeps saying that, and it's not true. He keeps trying to one-drop us. Oh, my goodness.
And in many cases, yes. That's I wouldn't say in all cases, but in many cases, yeah, sure, yeah.
So at least you're honest to admit that in many cases you would be identified as black because you have African features.
By the way, Ricardo Ignacio upholds the one-drop rule. Let's just be very clear about that. He's pro one-drop rule.
Undeniable. Yes or no?
Fair enough. I do. Fair enough. But I just want to say this. I'm getting irritated because everybody, and I'm not even really reading the comment section, but everybody in the comment section is saying you hate black people, you're anti-black, you're this and that. Have I said anything negative about black people the whole stream, Ricardo?
The guy said in America you're recognized as black, just go with it. No, because our real identity has been stolen from us and we're taking it back and we're piecing it back together. We're not just going to let the government take our identity from us that easily. Like, who do you think we are? Cowards? The fuck out of here. That's our word. That's our history. That's our legacy. It's our identity. And nobody else can tell us what to do with it. Just forfeit it. Just forfeit it. Fuck that. It's my shit. Get out of here.
No, I haven't. What have I said that was hostile towards black people? What have I said?
Okay, let me ask you.
Or negative. I haven't said anything. Go ahead.
You have a very anti-black demeanor and outlook, even if you don't necessarily intentionally say you may not intentionally say negative things, but they're there. I could tell. Listen, I could tell that there's anti-blackness.
The skull theory.
Oh, give me a break. Here comes the moralizing.
It's not anti-black, by the way. Sorry, somebody said the skull theory is not anti-black. It's not. It's not. You can do anthropological studies that trace skull shapes back to certain regions of the world. That's not anti-black. I'm sorry, but go ahead, Ricardo. People just lie too much.
Okay. How about this? I'm gonna give you 1 minute to read comments because you want to read comments. Read comments for 1 minute. I'll be back. Read comments for 1 minute. Answer. Go ahead.
Sorry. No, you can come back, man.
Go ahead. No, I'm gonna take a 1 minute break. Read comments.
I listen. The reason I said that is because I was ignoring them for the vast majority of the conversation, but I caught one that kind of irritated me a little bit. But it's very sad because this is the thing, Ricardo. Like when mixed race people in general or biracial people kind of express their plight to monoracials or black people in general, they want to turn around and say you're anti-black.
This lady said, my brother looks exactly like you. No, he doesn't. Stop lying. Your brother doesn't look like me. He doesn't look like me.
They want to turn.
Stop the cope. He's half Latino, not half white. What don't these people understand? Latino is not a race. Aren't these people always the one giving you a lecture that ethnicity and nationality and race are not the same thing? Latino is not a race. You can be white and be Latino. Like, these people are retarded.
Around and say you hate black people. They want to turn around and say you're a tragic mulatto. They want to turn around and say you're whatever. They want to come up with any list of kind of smears to throw at you. And I'm like, this is why it's hard to have productive conversation because people are so ready to make false accusations about you. I haven't said anything hateful about black people at all, ever. I don't hate on black people. I just don't.
Exactly. The guy said Latinos can be white. Exactly.
I don't have hatred towards.
I agree with the stuff he's saying. Exactly.
Black people. But the issue is when I get up here and I want to express my grievances and express my plight to this audience, the first thing they want to do is accuse me of being anti-black. And I'm like...
And by the way, I was very respectable. I was very respectful and fair and easygoing when I came onto this panel, and they still want to say that I'm anti-black because I said they or these or those African Americans. Like, give me a break. I mean, just give me a break with that. It's just ridiculous. You can't say anything.
I'm just advocating for myself. Or they want to say you're a cry racial. They want to say, oh, we have it harder than you. It's like, come on, man. You know what I mean? Like, where's the respect? Where's the sympathy? Where's the reciprocity? Why is it always one way but never the other way? And I haven't said anything mean. I haven't said anything spiteful. I haven't said anything hateful.
Okay. Sorry, I went to go take a little break. Did we read a couple comments and respond?
Yeah.
Okay, I'm not being like mean about it. I'm actually being sincere because it's okay to read comments. It's okay to not make people feel ignored. You know. So okay. So yes. To answer your question, yes. Although if you claim that you haven't intentionally been anti-black, I will give you the benefit of the doubt. But there's a lot of anti-blackness in your beliefs and your claims, and I blame it on the fact that it's very possible, and sometimes I want to claim that it's obvious that your white father, in his attempts to assimilate you or encourage you to assimilate into whiteness for so many years in your childhood, has affected you deeply that you don't understand how deeply it's affected you. It's safe to say.
That's a theory. That's it's not the truth, but it's a theory. I say this. What have I said that you can think of that demonstrates me being anti-black? Please, because here's the thing. Like, that's, you know, you can't say anything about anything if this is the opinions that people are going to have. We can't even have conversations. You know what I mean? It's like, I haven't said anything anti-black. That's why I'm confused. Did I hurt somebody's feelings? Maybe, but
basically the whole anti-black thing is, when they say you're anti-black, what they're basically saying is like, we're allowed to suppress your dissent. You can't dissent. We're going to suppress your dissent, right? Like, and when you start, and I shouldn't have made this mistake, when people accuse you of being anti-black and you start kind of pleading your case and fighting the allegations when people want to call you anti-black, what you're doing is you're stepping into their frame where they can kind of evaluate your moral character and judge you. So you're putting yourself in a position of weakness, you know, subjugation, essentially. When you start pleading your case, oh, I don't mean to be anti-black, I'm so sorry. You never do that. You have to continue to push back, be steadfast, and if they accuse you of being anti-black, just say, very good, well done, very good, and just move on. Never debate them on that, because it's like, it's just, they're looking to crucify you. You know, so you can't step into their frame. Like, I think when the manosphere guys say you have to maintain frame, I hate to use that term because those guys colonized it, and I don't identify with those guys at all. I don't support their message or their rhetoric. But, you know, when those manosphere guys talk about maintaining frame, they have a point. You know, you got to maintain frame. And you can't let them kind of like throw these kinds of like ridiculous, you know, morally loaded language at you, talking about you're anti-black, and all that is meant to basically force you to submit.
I say that's anti-black.
So they can kind of like judge your moral character. It's ridiculous.
Let me say something anti-black without making it. Let me say something anti-black right now, right? That
pointing out the truth and how genetics work is considered anti-black.
Click to where I make it seem like I'm not anti-black, right? Just as a demonstration. Oh, I love black women. Black women are amazing. I'm okay with the darker ones, but I wouldn't date those. They're beautiful. They're great. It's just I prefer like the lighter ones. Yeah, that's anti-black. You don't love black women. You're just that's fetishizing.
That doesn't apply to me. No, but I'll say this. No, I mean I think I understand why that would be. I don't think I've said anything to that effect. I'll say this though. You know, it's very unfortunate because, you know, you have to be able to hold people accountable at the end of the day, and you have to be able to say the truth. And I think that if you say something in good faith, if you say something in earnest, not meant to demonstrate or convey any kind of hostility or any kind of racism or resentment, and you still get casted as anti-black, to me, that's basically a way of submitting you. That's a way of having moral authority over you. And I just refuse to be put in that position. I refuse to be put in a position of subordination. I know when I'm saying something that's derogatory. I know when I'm saying something that's disrespectful. But I'm not saying anything about black people as a whole, not generalizing, not using any kind of racial slurs or whatever that would indicate that I'm anti-black. What they hear, and this is what I assume, they assume that because of the way I talk, the way I sound, maybe the way I act or whatever, and maybe some of the opinions I have, that those views or those opinions, those might be views they've heard somebody else who's anti-black have those views. But once again, that's a complete generalization. I haven't demonstrated any anti-black views this entire thing at all. So I just think it's bad faith. It's like that's the kind of honesty, and that's the kind of mentality that's going to be required for us to have honest conversations.
Well, how about this?
And that's the problem. Like, if you want to have honest, open dialogue with the opposition about this particular subject, um, you have to be able to kind of go into kind of uncharted territory and talk about these things more openly. But they don't want to have those conversations because it'll crumble their whole worldview, and they have to basically default to calling you anti-black. Very sad, very very sad. But I'd like to have these conversations with the opposition, but I don't know. They seem more invested in kind of denigrating and attacking us.
Use me as an example in a similar way that you have explained and expressed yourself towards black people that are not like you, mixed. Okay.
What have I said?
Let me give you a great example using myself. So you identify black people as them. I'm not them, bro. Like, I'm not them. Check me out.
We're the same population.
Right. There's nothing wrong with saying that. That's not there. Why does that have to have a negative connotation? That's weird.
Sure. Yeah.
Okay. Listen. Although I don't have a white parent or white family member, etc., but I'm gonna do my best to give you an equivalent using myself. Okay. I have in my DNA test result that says 11% West African. Okay. So indigenous people, let's say indigenous people of Mexico, I say those people. I am those people. But let's say I said no, I'm not those people because I have an admixture there. I have a 11% West African. So I'm not indigenous. Don't call me that. No, no soy indio. I'm mixed. Like why is it such an insult? Those are my people. I am those people.
I never treated it as an insult. I don't know why he's lying. Like when he asked me if somebody identified you at the store as a young black gentleman, would you be mad about that? No, of course not. I wouldn't be mad about that. I wouldn't care. I would let it go. Like it's not a big deal. I wouldn't even address it. I'd just go with it. Because there's nothing wrong with that. Now, if people try to identify me that way after I tell them explicitly to identify me as mulatto, then of course, yeah, I'd be like, okay, come on, man, show some respect. But no, I've never, I don't know what he's talking about. Like, I'm trying to like, oh, no, don't identify me as black. It's like, no, just identify me correctly. Like, just identify me as mulatto. That's okay.
Why is it such an insult to be identified with those people that you clearly, visibly are? Even if you have mixture, sure, you are those people, or are you not?
Definitely, that's my ancestor, that's my blood, yeah, for sure. I'm only talking about in the specific context of this conversation. But no, I don't have any like, oh, that's them over there, and I don't like them. It's not that. It's more so I think that in a conversation we're talking about race and identity, you got to be assertive. You have to be forward, you have to be blunt, you have to be assertive, you have to be clear about the boundaries. And I've been very respectful.
Exactly, because if you're not, then they're just going to trample you.
About that. I can't be any more respectful than I've been.
And by the way, look at how much they attack me. Look at how much they question my identity. Look at how much they want to, accuse me of hating black people and being anti-black. I'm the victim in this situation. I'm the one being attacked and maligned. I'm not the bad guy here. They're the mob. The mob is attacking me and accusing me. So I'm not the bad guy. I'm the good guy here, trying to help us recover a sense of true, meaningful identity. And so we can kind of locate ourselves in the world and find ourselves again as mulattoes. That's an honorable, noble mission.
You don't have to walk on eggshells. Do I have to apologize? This is the way I look at it, Ricardo. If you do something that offends somebody, and there's a whole host of details that get left out, are you supposed to just say, you can either have one of two choices. I'm going to double down and defend everything I said and pretend like I didn't do anything wrong. That's one approach. Or you could be like, I'm so sorry. I didn't mean to say that. How could I ever? I don't think that's the right approach either. There's nuance. There's details. Why did I say it like this? This is the reason I have that feeling. Yeah, I could kind of understand why you interpret it that way, but I didn't mean it that way. There's nuance. Where's the nuance? Why is it always, it's like almost quasi-religious. It's very strange. You have to be able to have these conversations.
Exactly. There's never any nuance to the conversation. There's never any nuance to the conversation. You know what I mean? It's always like, it's either, we feel like we're forced to double down on everything, or we have to apologize for wanting to be mulatto. It's like, no, there needs to be some nuance in the discussion. And some respect needs to be showed to our identity. Very simple.
And kind of be able to be able to kind of expand the parameters without being accused of being malicious. It's bizarre to me. It's bizarre.
Okay, but I was just giving you an example. I wasn't telling you to walk on eggshells to watch your mouth. No, I'm just giving you an example of, what I see as a non-black person, what I see as anti-blackness. It's like, what I've gathered from our conversations is, this guy hates being black. That's what I've gathered.
No,
Oh, what? Give me a break. Oh, give me a break.
Oh, that's a very strange assumption to make. I just recognize that I'm both. That's it. It's just me. It's just me saying this is my identity. This is how I identify, and it's that simple. And I actually look at it as I think what I'm doing is actually righteous.
And that right there kind of shows you everything. That doesn't that tell you everything you need to know about this fucking guy? Like the guy says, oh, from the past 2 conversations that me and you have had, I get the impression that you're anti-black. And it's like, okay, you tell us you don't care how we identify. You tell us you're not trying to control, you know, whether or not we label ourselves as mulatto or mixed. You say that, but then we have these conversations, we air out our grievances, and then you want to cast us as anti-black. You know, it's kind of like, it's almost as if simply the act of acknowledging you're mulatto or mixed and not allowing yourself to be one dropped into blackness, like that in and of itself and being firm in your identity, to him is no different than being anti-black. So on some level, he does view just saying you're mixed or mulatto and not claiming black as being anti-black. It's weird, that kind of like social pressure. It's almost like parasitic.
I would say it's righteous because if it's true that supernatural forces or circumstance brought our parents together to have children, and those children want to advocate on behalf of themselves, I'd say that's righteous. I'd say that's moral. So I don't think anything I'm doing even falls into the realm of being anti-black. I'm just advocating for us. It's that simple. That's how I look at it. There's no kind of like, I'm motivated by like resentment towards black people. I hate black people. I'm just saying we're mixed, and that's okay. And I think our identity should be respected. That's what I'm saying. So I feel like I've been very respectful.
Exactly.
Okay, I've never argued your ancestry. I never will. My only argument, like I said for the final time, hopefully, is learning the difference between race, ethnicity, and nationality. A lot of people have a difficult time with this. Our country is filled with a high percentage of our population not knowing the difference between race, ethnicity, and
That's you, Ricardo. You don't know the difference between a black person and an African American, so that's you.
nationality. And in this particular case, it is obvious that you want race to be tied to your ethnicities, and it just doesn't work.
They say mixed is not a race. Mixed is not a race, but mulatto is. So, suck it.
You're going to continue experiencing a life of people misidentifying you because that is race. It's not a solid
And I'll just clarify. That's okay.
identity.
And I'll just clarify. That's okay. Yeah, I'm fine with that. It's not the end of the world. You know, I mean, this is the final thing I'll say. I'll just say, you know, I just this is how I look at it, Ricardo. You can't speak for all of society, and you can't speak for everybody, and you can't
Exactly.
reduce race to just. It's not as simple as you make it seem. That's what I'm saying. There's a lot of nuance to it. There's a lot of misunderstanding. There's a lot of lines being blurred. There's a lot of assumptions being thrown out. So it's not. And there's experiences that I've had that you're not familiar with. Lines being blurred. There's a lot of assumptions being thrown out. So it's not. And there's experiences that I've had that you're not familiar with, and that the audience is not familiar with, and that's okay. You know what I'm saying? That's okay. I think I have every right to advocate for biracial people, mulattoes, mixed race people, and there's no reason why that should be misconstrued as some kind of hateful agenda, because there's really not. That's all I have to say.
Okay.
Yeah, they always want to portray it as like us reclaiming our identity is synonymous with being hateful or wanting to be anti-black or distance ourselves from black people. And it's like, none of that is true. We're just claiming our true identity. We're not turning our back on anybody. We're not separating from anybody. We're not attacking anybody. We're just reclaiming who we are. A sense of tribe, a sense of true identity. And that will be who we are as people. Very simple.
So, okay, since, you know, I can't speak for all of society and how they will identify you, so why don't you ask me what race I see when I look at you?
You probably see black.
Why do you think that is?
Well, we've already established this. It's because I have curly hair, I have brown skin.
You have the features of what is racially identified as black. I'm sure this, you've admitted to this, you have experienced a life where many people have identified you as black.
But they know I'm not just black in many cases, most of the time, or a lot of the time, yeah. They know I'm not monoracial in many cases, yeah. I stand by that.
Exactly.
Okay. I mean, any other topic, or is that it?
All I can say is
They know I'm not monoracial. I got his ass with that one. I got his ass. I got that nigga. You want to identify you as black. You want to identify you as black. Yeah, but they know I'm not monoracial. Got him. Clocked him. They know I'm not monoracial. So they know I'm mixed. They know I'm actually a mulatto man. Got him.
I'm glad we cleared everything up. I'm glad you let me come up here. I think we had a robust, substantive conversation. I think it was productive. And I do want to apologize to you. I owe you an apology.
Somebody said here, look, somebody threw in there.
Had a robust,
Listen,
substantive conversation. I think
somebody says, I would have thought he's just
Productive.
Hispanic. Look at this guy. Black person. He says, I would have thought he was just Hispanic. Boom, got him.
And I do want to apologize to you. I owe you an apology for, you know, basically escalating so quickly and being presumptuous. And no, I will say you're a good guy. You're an honest guy.
All right, you guys get the idea. Anyways, that was a really good conversation. I thought it was very productive. So shout out to Ricardo. I don't appreciate how he portrayed me in that first interview, but you know, it is what it is. I get it. He's going to do his clickbait. So it's YouTube. It's all good. But I appreciate the guy for letting me come up on his platform. And I think I held my own there. And at the end of the day, as mulattoes, we are entitled to our own identity. It is our God-given right. It is ours for the taking. Nobody else's. It belongs to us and us only. And nobody can tell us what to do with it. Very simple. That's my only message. Those are your people. Those are our people. And we have every right to be proud of our people as mulattoes. So anyways, that's all I have to say. If you guys like the video, please like, subscribe, leave a comment, share, and until further ado, I'm out.